Chapter 4081. These wandering souls need to be dealt with immediately. Buddha Bodhi said, either this poor monk reincarnates them, or Tanyu takes them into the space. Let this Xiao do it. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said, since these wandering souls can't return to the 9 underworlds, even if you use the Buddhist mantra, it might not be effective. The population of our space has reached the limit, we need these wandering souls to replenish it. Namo Mettria Buddha. Buddha Bodhi chanted and said, let's do as Tanyu says. Woo! Xiao Hua released his mind and activated the spiritual energy of the underworld. Winds and clouds surged within 10,000 miles, and the wandering souls were all taken into the space by Xiao Hua. Yu Mingxin. Xiao Hua transmitted, wait here for this old man for a moment. Senior. Yu Mingxin looked up in surprise. Seeing Xiao Hua waving his hand, she hurriedly transmitted, there are a lot of tribute wastelands. Unfortunately, before she could finish speaking, Xiao Hua's figure moved slightly, and he'd already vanished from where he stood. Seeing Xiao Hua teleport away, Yu Mingxin's heart felt empty for no reason. However, she shook her head slightly and carefully cleaned up the corpses on the ground. In fact, under normal circumstances, the cultivators of the ruins would use their magic power to store the corpses of the devil cultivator into their Sumeru ring. However, after hearing Xiao Hua's solemn words, Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming did not dare to be negligent and personally cleaned them up. After the two finished cleaning up, they looked up at the sky and released their divine sense. Unfortunately, there was no trace of Xiao Hua within 100 kilometers. Yu Changming asked worriedly, Junior sister, do you think Senior Xiao has left? Yu Mingxin smiled and replied, although this is the first time I saw Senior Xiao, from his words and actions, I feel that he is a trustworthy person. He won't leave without saying goodbye. In fact, the most important thing is that Senior Xiao's spiritual power is unfathomable. If he wants to leave, we can't stop him. Since he promised to go with us to the 7 Ridge Mountains, he will definitely go. Of course I understand. Yu Changming said with a wry smile, however, there is nothing special around the tribute wastelands. Why would he go elsewhere? I don't know. Yu Mingxin shrunk his neck slightly, looked at the gradually setting sun, and said, Senior Xiao wants us to wait, then let's wait. The two of them waited for several hours. Seeing that the moon was bright and the stars were sparse, Xiao Hua appeared in front of them. Senior. Seeing Xiao Hua's figure appear from the void, Yu Mingxin called out with a smile, Senior. Yu Changming hastily followed Yu Mingxin and bowed, Senior is back. En. Xiao Hua agreed. He raised his head and looked at the unfamiliar star chart in the night sky. Earlier, when the stars were shining, Xiao Hua had already observed it. The star chart here was different from the morning rain continent and the hidden immortal continent. This ruins was definitely not the hidden immortal continent. The time fragment that he was worried about didn't bring him to the hidden immortal continent that was very, very far in the future. Where did Senior go? Yu Mingxin's bright eyes moved, and said with some concern, devil dwellers occasionally appear around the tribute wastelands. Xiao Hua laughed, raised his hand and took out 2 devil dwellers from the space, and said, previously, this old man thought that they were monsters, but after hearing you say that they were devil dwellers, this old man felt very strange. Because these devil dwellers were different from what this old man saw, this old man went to capture a few to see. Senior. Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming were stunned. There were countless experts in the ruins, and there were also many capable people who could kill devil dwellers. However, to capture devil dwellers as easily as Xiao Hua, there weren't many. At least, the two of them had never seen such a thing. I'll give them to you. Xiao Hua waved his hand, and the 2 devil dwellers fell in front of the 2 of them. Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming understood Xiao Hua's intention, and were even more ecstatic. They both stretched out their hand and activated a ring on their finger, collecting the devil dwellers, and then bowed and said, many thanks, Senior Xiao. You're welcome. Xiao Hua looked at the rings on the 2's hand, and said with a smile, is this a universe ring? Oh, this is a Sumeru ring. Yu Mingxin knew that Xiao Hua wasn't a cultivator of the cultivation world, and didn't know that the ring on her hand was a Sumeru ring, so she hurriedly explained. Moreover, she was very lucky and took out a slightly exquisite Sumeru ring from her bosom, and handed it to Xiao Hua, saying, "Senior, this is Junior's Tongxi ring. The space inside is much larger than the Star Lake ring on Junior's hand. If Senior doesn't mind, please kindly accept it." This. Xiao Hua smiled. His space was now several million miles away, and he didn't know how much larger it was than a Sumeru ring. How could he use a Sumeru ring? He waved his hand and said, "No need, this old man has his own universe ring and other things, I don't need this Sumeru ring." Yu Mingxin didn't take back the Sumeru ring, and still insisted, "Senior saved Junior's life, this Junior has nothing to repay. Just take this Tongxi ring as Junior's thanks." "Haha, good." Xiao Hua saw Yu Mingxin's insistence, and raised his hand to take the Sumeru ring into his bosom. He waved his hand and took out 10 dragon crystals, saying, "This old man doesn't have anything particularly precious, these are dragon crystals. I don't know if the ruins have them, but I'll give them to you as a plaything." The dragon crystal was very strange. In the stacked jade Forgotten Realm, it was a crystal, but in this place, it was shining brightly. Moreover, there was a crystal clear dragon shape that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws in the light. What was special was that it was night, so the light was even more obvious. Dragon crystals. Seeing the 10 dragon crystals were like 10 little dragons dancing in the air, Yu Mingxin's eyes immediately lit up. She covered her mouth with her hand in surprise, and said in surprise, This is the legendary dragon crystals of the dragon world. It's really too beautiful." Not to mention Yu Mingxin was surprised, even Yu Changming's eyes were filled with envy. Xiao Hua's heart moved, and he asked Yu Changming with a smile, "Is the dragon world near the cultivation world? I'll let Senior Xiao know." Yu Changming retracted his gaze and respectfully replied, "The dragon world is very far from the cultivation world, and it is said that the barrier between the dragon world and the other worlds is very strange. Besides the dragon race, other races can enter at will. Therefore, the dragon crystals rarely flow out." Xiao Hua frowned, and said, "This old man knows of a dragon realm, but I don't know if this dragon world is the dragon realm." This. Yu Changming shook his head awkwardly, "This Junior doesn't know, this Junior has never heard of the dragon realm." "He, Daoist Xiao." Yu Mingxin came back to her senses, and put the 10 dragon crystals into her Sumeru ring, and said with a smile, "This Junior seems to have heard of the dragon realm." "Oh, is that so?" Xiao Hua was overjoyed, and asked, "Tell me about it." "This Junior." Yu Mingxin looked at Yu Changming, and said with some embarrassment, "More than 10 years ago, when I was on duty at the Bright Palace, I occasionally heard the sect master and the other seniors talk about a few words, and there seemed to be a dragon realm inside. Of course, this Junior didn't hear it clearly, maybe the dragon realm and the dragon realm that Senior is talking about are not the same. That dragon realm should be one of the lower realms of the dragon world, of course, what the other lower realms are, this Junior doesn't know." Sigh. Xiao Hua couldn't help but be shocked. In the eyes of the Dragon Island, the dragon realm is the upper realm, and in the eyes of the dragon world, the dragon realm is the lower realm. What's more, this cultivation world is on the same level as the dragon world, then, what realm is this cultivation world? Xiao Hua was completely confused. "Senior." Yu Mingxin said in a low voice, "This is something that this Junior occasionally heard, it can't be taken seriously. Moreover, there are countless worlds outside the cultivation world, it's not strange to have 1 or 2 people with the same name." Xiao Hua took a deep breath, and said, "Forget it, let's not talk about this. Let's go back to the 7 Ridge Mountains first." "Yes, Senior." Yu Changming said respectfully, "Senior, please follow this Junior. Oh, these 2 dragon crystals are also for you." Xiao Hua nodded, and handed the 2 dragon crystals to Yu Changming. "Many thanks, Senior." Yu Changming hastily received the dragon crystals, and happily said, then led Xiao Hua to the transmission array. The transmission array of Fragrance Religion was located on top of a mountain peak, and it was only a few dozen li away from here. Xiao Hua had already discovered it when he released his divine sense. Before flying to the mountain peak, Xiao Hua had already learned from Yu Mingxin that the devil race had really set up a trap here. They had killed a group of 10 people, and only Yu Mingxin was left alive, so that the disciples of Fragrance Religion would come to rescue him. Unfortunately, Yu Mingxin had sent a message early, and didn't clearly explain the dangers of this place. When Yu Changming received the message, he anxiously rushed over, and didn't inform his fellow disciples. If it weren't for Xiao Hua accidentally bumping into his transmission channel, not to mention rescuing Yu Mingxin, even Yu Changming himself would have been trapped in this wasteland. Yu Changming took out a long jade pendant from his Sumeru ring, which was engraved with ancient symbols. As Yu Changming chanted, the surrounding heaven and earth origin qi gradually gathered. Then, Yu Changming's hands formed a seal, and the jade pendant turned into a fist-sized halo that fell into the array. Boom! The array was activated, and a burst of light and shadow flashed, like a blooming daisy, and 100 zhong-wide transmission array appeared in front of Xiao Hua and the others, exuding obscure fluctuations. Xiao Hua had been paying attention to Yu Changming's spellcasting, and saw that the magic power fluctuations were similar to what he knew, but the spellcasting was completely different. Of course, the power of this spell seemed to be stronger than that of the Dawn Rain continent. Daoist Xiao. Yu Mingxin saw the transmission array appear and said with a smile, if Daoist Xiao hadn't mistakenly entered Senior Brother Changming's transmission channel, Senior Brother Changming should have come out from here. Didn't this Xiao come here to save you? Xiao Hua blinked his eyes and looked at Yu Mingxin. He didn't know if it was intentional or not, but he replied with a smile, if this Xiao fell here, wouldn't there be no way to save you? -13. Chapter 4082. He, that's right. Yu Mingxin smiled faintly and was about to say something when the moonlight in the sky suddenly shone brightly. An extremely obscure and broad wave of energy swept across the night sky. In the air, an inexplicable cloud appeared, and the originally dense heaven and earth yuan qi became even denser. At this time, Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming's faces turned serious. They stopped activating the teleportation formation and put their hands in front of their chest to greet the moon. When Xiao Hua saw the two acting so respectfully and the strange movements of their hands, he knew that this was some kind of ritual. Hence, his figure flashed and retreated several dozen feet. When the fluctuation fell on Xiao Hua's body, the spirit of the formless nascent soul shook. The cultivation art in his body was activated and the nebula-like core was immediately filled with bright moonlight. Oh! Xiao Hua frowned. He was a little surprised and a little happy. After the time it took to finish a meal, the two of them stood up. Yu Changming went to activate the teleportation formation while Yu Mingxin said with a smile, I'll let you know that this is the moon sacrifice of our ruins. Normally, it happens once a month. However, there are some abnormalities with the invasion of the devil race. Sometimes it takes half a month, sometimes it takes 2 months. What is moon sacrifice? Xiao Hua looked at Yu Changming carefully, taking out the origin stones and putting them on the teleportation formation. His movements were jerky and he knew that activating the teleportation formation would take some time. Seeing that Xiao Hua didn't have any reaction to the moon, Yu Mingxin naturally knew that Xiao Hua didn't know what moon sacrifice was. However, she still probed, there is a moon palace in the moon god realm. Everything in the moon god realm, including the heaven and earth origin energy, is bestowed by the moon palace. The people of the moon god realm naturally have to worship the moon palace. Could it be that spiritual master Xiao's 3 continents don't worship the moon palace? Xiao Hua shook his head slightly and replied, although our 3 continents have moon essence, I have never heard of the moon god realm. Spiritual master Xiao, could it be that you came from outside the realm? Yu Mingxin was a little dumbfounded. This junior has never heard of the realm outside the moon palace, even if there are other realms nearby. Speaking until here, Yu Mingxin was shocked. She looked at Yu Changming, who was setting up the teleportation formation, and hurriedly sent a sound transmission. Senior Xiao, you better not say that you came from outside the realm. Also, don't say that you don't know of the moon god realm. Why? Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and asked curiously. Yu Mingxin bit her lips slightly as she sent a sound transmission to Yun Che. Senior, please know that the moon god realm is commonly known as the cultivation world in the mouths of us disciples. In my moon god realm, all cultivators must worship the moon palace. The purpose of this junior's cultivation is also to enter the moon palace. Anyone who doesn't respect the moon palace will be seen as an alien, just like the devil race. Senior, you are a kind person. Although you don't know about the moon palace, You are still part of our Tao sect. Therefore, it is best to avoid any misunderstandings. Sigh. Xiao Hua couldn't remember how many times he had sucked in a breath of cold air. Previously, when he was doubtful, he faintly felt that something was wrong, but at that time, he didn't know what it was. Only now did he realize it. The Daoist cultivators of the hidden immortal continent ascended to the immortal world. The dragons of the Dragon Island broke through the void and arrived at the Dragon Field. If this world of cultivation was higher than the Dragon Field, then, how could these Daoist cultivators ascend? Where are they going? Now, Yu Mingxin said what Xiao Hua wanted to know. The Moon Palace was actually the place where the cultivators of the cultivation world, the ruins, ascended. This was definitely a subversion of Xiao Hua's understanding. Sigh. Just as Xiao Hua was about to open his mouth again, Yu Mingxin raised his eyes to look at the moon and said with a sorrowful tone, "It's a pity that our ruins is a remote corner of the cultivation world. It has already been a long time since the Moon Palace's emissary came to select disciples. In these millions of years, many seniors went to other places and many sects were destroyed. Otherwise, when the devil race invaded, we wouldn't have fallen into such a sorry state." Xiao Hua somewhat understood. Perhaps there was a convenient way to reach the Moon Palace in the cultivation world. However, this way was man-made. If no one came to select disciples, this way would be closed. It was not as good as the hidden immortal continent. As long as one cultivated, as long as one had enough strength, they would be able to ascend. There was no need to look at the faces of those people, nor did they need to rely on the charity of others. Senior. Yu Changming had already finished setting up the transfer array. He flew over and said respectfully, "The transfer array is ready. Senior, please enter the transfer array. Junior will activate the array." Xiao Hua nodded and entered the teleportation array. After that, Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming chanted incantations at the same time and formed hand seals. A fist-sized rune appeared in the teleportation array and a black and white pillar of light shot up into the sky. The three of them disappeared from the teleportation array, leaving behind only the light of the teleportation array. Then, the teleportation array slowly came to a stop. Inside the transfer array, the spatial pressure was very strong. Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming's body flashed with a faint brilliance, blocking the pressure. The three figures in the transfer array were slightly distorted. Xiao Hua tried to open his mouth but his voice seemed to be dragged out. It was somewhat similar to the heavenly prison. After the time it took to eat a meal, Xiao Hua felt the pressure on his body gradually lessen. He knew that the transfer array was about to end. He didn't ask how far the wasteland was from the fragrance cult, but it definitely didn't seem close. Boom! Just as the three figures became clear, the entire transfer array suddenly trembled. Then, the rotating black and white brilliance suddenly exploded. Yu Changming was shocked. When the brilliance cracked, a strong black flame rushed out from the crack. Then, a black devil claw stretched out. The devil claw was 10 feet long and had 6 pitch-black fingers. Each finger was wrapped in black flames and each finger had a strange innate devil pattern. When the devil claw reached out, the space around Yu Changming was enveloped by the black flames. He couldn't use his magic power at all. Even under Yu Changming's robe, a faint yellow brilliance flashed. Then, there was a burst of sound. It seemed like his personal defensive treasure was broken. Yu Changming's complexion changed. Ka. At this critical moment, an iron rod blocked the devil claw. The huge force not only dispersed the black flames but also crushed the 2 fingers of the devil claw. Ao! A clear roar came from outside the transfer array. It faintly entered Yu Changming's ears. Then, the devil claw suddenly retracted. But when it retracted to the edge of the transfer array, another devil claw fell down. Rumble. It sounded like a boulder rolling down the mountain. The transfer array was actually torn apart by the devil claw. Xiao Hua and the others felt the space around them shake. The black and white brilliance disappeared and the transfer array also turned into fragments. Xiao Hua felt a little dizzy, but at this moment, he could clearly see that because of the sneak attack of the devils, they weren't sent to the real transfer array. At this time, the 3 of them were in mid-air. In addition to the 3 of them, There was another demon in the air that looked similar to the one they had killed in the wasteland. However, this demon was several times larger than the one they had killed in the wasteland. Moreover, this demon looked somewhat similar to the human race. When he looked around again, he saw balls of black and white light emerging in midair. Daoist cultivators either escaped from the light or had their limbs severed. Around the black and white light, there were one or two devils spreading their pitch-black wings. Their fiendish claws that flickered with black flames were plunged into the light. Not only that, in midair, there was a huge lotus-like mountain. In the middle of the mountain, there was a huge transfer array. Around the mountain, there were dozens of smaller transfer arrays. At this time, the transfer arrays were slightly rotating and issuing a rumbling sound. Around the transfer array, there were hundreds of cultivators of the Dao sect. Each of them was holding a magic weapon and fighting against the devils. The devils outnumbered the humans and their methods were much more cruel. The whole mountain was filled with blood chi and shouts of killing shook the sky. Roar! Just as Xiao Hua saw everything in front of him, the devil in front of them roared angrily. Black flames madly rushed out of its wings. The flame threads in the black flames passed through the void and completely enveloped Xiao Hua and the other two. It was like a kind of domain power that imprisoned the space. Oh! It's a little strange. Xiao Hua had cultivated the devil arts of the blood drop paradise. Naturally, he was very familiar with the cultivation methods of the devil race. However, seeing the somewhat mutated black flames and the formidable power of the black flames, he was slightly startled. Under the black flames, not to mention Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming, even Xiao Hua's true essence was forcibly imprisoned. He couldn't activate it at all. Moreover, just as this imprisonment was formed, the devil swung its tail. An incomparably sharp spike with the smell of blood unexpectedly emerged from the void behind Xiao Hua and strangely pierced towards the back of Xiao Hua's head. Xiao Hua muttered in his heart. He heard Yu Mingxin's miserable cry, "Daoist Xiao, be careful." Xiao Hua slightly turned his head and said with a smile, "Miss Mingxin, don't be afraid. I am here." Seeing Xiao Hua's smile, Yu Mingxin's heart relaxed for no reason. Looking at Xiao Hua again, as he spoke, several thumb-sized thunderbolts emerged from his hand and struck the devil's tail. Lightning flickered and the spike was unexpectedly torn apart. Even the lightning didn't stop and rushed towards the void. Wherever the lightning passed, the void was also torn apart. Previously in the transfer array, Xiao Hua didn't dare to use the lightning technique for fear of destroying the transfer array. But in midair, Xiao Hua naturally didn't have any more taboos. Puff! Xiao Hua opened his mouth again, and a light purple lightning arc quickly rushed out, and landed on the devil's heart. The devil looked down at his heart with some disbelief. That place was originally engraved with devil patterns, and ordinary magic treasures couldn't break it. And now, a fist-sized hole had appeared in that supposedly indestructible place. The edges of this hole were still flickering with strands of lightning. Boom! Just at this moment, a low explosive sound came from within the devil's body. The devil's heart was killed by Xiao Hua. The devil slightly raised his head, his eyes filled with disbelief and confusion. Then, the black flames were annihilated, and the devil's body fell from the sky. -13. Chapter 4083. Woo! Xiao Hua naturally wouldn't let the devil's body fall here. With a sweep of his mind, the devil's corpse was already stored in his space. Daoist Xiao. Seeing Xiao Hua easily killing the devil, Yu Mingxin hastily called out from the side, "Quickly, this is one of the 9 transfer centers of the ruins. There are many transfer channels converging here. If the devil race occupies this place, not only will many transfer channels be cut off, there will also be many fellow Taoists who will fly like moths to a flame and fall into the devil race's trap." Xiao Hua nodded and replied, "The two of you will lead the way for this old man. Wherever this old man needs help, bring this old man there. After that, the two of you will gather the disciples this old man rescued and rise up to resist the devil race." Yes. Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming were very familiar with this transfer center. Hearing Xiao Hua's words, they immediately brought Xiao Hua to the center of the transfer array. However, before Xiao Hua could get close, rumble. The sound of explosions came from the distance of the transfer array. The light of the transfer array was also extremely bright. Soon after, the rumbling sound of the transfer array disappeared. Not good. Yu Mingxin said anxiously, the transfer array was destroyed by the devil race. How are we going to return to the sect? Quickly. Yu Changming urged, Daoist Xiao, let's save the other transfer arrays. After saying that, Yu Changming brought Xiao Hua to fly to the nearest transfer array. Xiao Hua patted his forehead with one hand and opened his illusion breaker eye. After quickly looking around, he shook his head slightly. These devils are proficient in the Tao of space. They have already started from the transfer channel and destroyed the transfer array from the inside to the outside. We are half a step late. I'm afraid this transfer array will be destroyed. What should we do? Yu Changming was somewhat anxious. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and looked around. After a slight estimation, he said, don't worry. Let's first drive the devil race away. We will slowly repair these transfer arrays. Just as Xiao Hua's words landed, a human-shaped devil flew out from the central transmission array and rushed towards Xiao Hua not far away. Thin black flames were surging all over this humanoid devilish being's body, making it appear as if it were wearing a set of clothes. Furthermore, this devilish being's facial features were far more pleasing to the eye than the previous devilish being. Aside from the addition of a crimson horn that was over 3 inches long on its forehead, it appeared to be quite similar to an ordinary human being. Before the devil landed, he immediately shouted arrogantly, where did this Daoist cultivator come from? How dare you have designs on this old man? Ha ha, the demon race has learned the etiquette of our human race? You call yourself an old man? Xiao Hua sneered and waved his hands. 2 sword-like thunderbolts appeared out of thin air and pierced towards the chest of the demon. Damn it! The demon cursed in a low voice and released the aura of the demon race from his body. He raised his hand and took out a long spear from who knows where. One of his hands waved the long spear towards Xiao Hua, while the other hand waved and 100 feet long devil fire rushed towards the thunderbolt. Hong long long. The thunderbolts were originally condensed like swords. As soon as they touched the devil fire, the thunderbolts immediately turned into the shape of a horned dragon and rushed towards the devil fire. A huge explosion sounded, and the overwhelming might of the heavens and earth rumbled within 100 feet. The devil fire was instantly extinguished by the thunderbolts. Keng! At the same time, another loud noise sounded. Xiao Hua waved his hand and the wishful steel staff appeared out of thin air and hit the devil's spear. In an instant, the devil's spear was sent flying. The devil looked at Xiao Hua with some disbelief, as if he had never thought that a human race cultivator could be so fierce. Woo! With a muffled sound, Xiao Hua's divine will hammer was born again and smashed towards the devil. The demon was scared out of his wits as he looked at the invisible divine sense that was falling from the sky like a meteor. Crimson-red light rushed out of his body, and the horn on his forehead suddenly released a fist-sized light shadow. The light shadow trembled and rushed into the sky like a demon. Every time the light shadow flew an inch, the space collapsed, and blood-red liquid seeped out of the cracks in space. A fishy smell that could corrode everything spread out from the light shadow. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the divine will hammer fell and hit the shadow. The devil was instantly smashed into thousands of fireflies. Under the strong wind, the fireflies had just turned into a smaller devil and had just let out a horrifying smile in the air when they were immediately crushed by the strong wind. What was special was that the divine will hammer didn't slow down after destroying the shadow. It still carried the power of 1,000 catties and still rushed towards the devil. The devil spread his devil wings and just disappeared into the void. The divine will hammer fell and smashed on one of the devil's wings. Zilolo! Like water falling into a pot of oil, the divine will hammer was corroded at the same time, and the devil's wing was also destroyed by the divine will hammer. Ah! The devil once again let out a heart-wrenching roar. His whole devil body surged with devil flames and was about to disappear into the void. At this time, a 3-inch long lightning thread was spat out from Xiao Hua's mouth. Shua! The lightning thread flashed and immediately disappeared. Then, the space between Xiao Hua and the devil rumbled like a drum. The devil's body that had disappeared appeared again. The devil looked around in disbelief, and his blood-red eyes were filled with fear. Crack. What was even more bizarre was that the devilish body of the devilish being suddenly cracked. Then, as if it was made of glass, the devilish being shattered into pieces. Within the pieces of solidified devilish flames, there were still streaks of lightning flashing like cobwebs. This is a bit strange. Seeing that his lightning technique was so powerful, even Xiao Hua was a bit surprised. Although he was now at the Grand Ascension stage and his strength was comparable to that of a tribulation-transcending stage cultivator, it was still far beyond Xiao Hua's expectations that his lightning technique would be so perfect. After Xiao Hua killed this demon general, he finally attracted the attention of the other demon generals. Near the center of the teleportation formation, a series of ghostly wails and howls suddenly sounded. Several demon generals surged with demon chi and joined hands to activate a bloody light. From below the teleportation formation, they surged towards Xiao Hua like raging wave. Mph. Xiao Hua coldly snorted and slapped the top of his head. Pfff. A burst of 5-colored chi more ferocious than a volcanic eruption rushed into the air. Then, accompanied by an oppressive pressure, it spread in all directions. Rumble. Wherever the 5-colored chi passed, all of the blood-red light was destroyed. All of the devil flames were also extinguished. Even the devil chi around the devil generals was thinned by this unparalleled and overwhelming aura. The originally arrogant devils in the devil chi all shrunk their necks and hid in the devil chi. What kind of divine ability is this? Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming were already full of admiration for Xiao Hua. At this time, when they saw the chi of a refined void stage cultivator, they were even more shocked. In their perception, this chi of a refined void stage cultivator was incomparably firm and sharp. It was the natural enemy of devil chi. Not only that, but when they looked at Xiao Hua again, he rubbed his hands again and again, and several thumb-sized crystal lights fell into the air. Hundreds of fluctuations were generated from his body and quickly rippled out to 1,000 miles away. Rumble. Countless lightning flashed and thunder roared in the void. All of the teleportation formations on the mountain peak were covered by these lightning bolts. An unparalleled mountain pressure was generated around Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming. The two of them found it difficult to even breathe, let alone use their true essence. Domain, such a large domain. Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming didn't know how to hide the shock in their heart. Boom. 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 One after another, the sound of explosions came from the various teleportation formations. One by one, the weaker devils were killed by Xiao Hua's lightning power. At the same time, the equally powerful devils abandoned the human cultivators that were attacking them and appeared from the void. They used their divine abilities to destroy Xiao Hua's domain. Keng! Xiao Hua slightly raised his hand, and 9-sword chi appeared out of thin air. The sword chi was as strong as the rising sun, and with a wave of Xiao Hua's hand, it fell on the two devils closest to Xiao Hua. One of the two devils was holding a devil hammer in his hand, and the other was holding a black short spear. Half of their bodies fell into the void. They seemed to want to escape, but under Xiao Hua's domain, neither of them could escape into the void. The two devils had no choice but to stimulate their devil chi. Their bodies expanded like black smoke, and at the same time, they faced the flying sword chi. Ka! With a soft sound, the sword chi fell without a trace. The two seemingly indestructible devil tools were split in half by the sword chi. Moreover, the sword chi didn't stop. It flew towards a tall devil general several li away. Seeing the sword chi fly half a li away, the devil horns on the two devil generals' foreheads emitted a faint blood-red light. Then, a faint blood-red light rushed out of the devil horns, and the devil horns were split in half. At the same time, the bodies of the two devil generals were neatly split in half, and they fell from the sky with a loud bang. Ka! Similarly, the devil general several li away wasn't Xiao Hua's opponent. When his devil tool was split in half, his body was also split in half. Senior martial brother. Yu Mingxin's eyes curved into bright moons. She looked at Yu Changming with some pride and whispered, Senior Xiao might be a great expert of the 5th stage of the Dao transformation realm. An outer realm cultivator we casually picked up actually has such a powerful divine ability. Hehe, that's right. Yu Changming touched his face and said with a smile, not long ago, this Dao transformation senior actually stepped on me and apologized to me. My heart is drunk. That's right. Yu Mingxin agreed. It's rare for Senior Xiao to be so approachable with such a profound cultivation. If he didn't reveal such a method, I would have thought he was just a void refinement realm cultivator. Indeed. Yu Changming prostrated himself in admiration. Senior Xiao's method is brilliant, but the most important thing is his bearing. This is the first time I've seen someone like him. This bearing is like an unattainable mountain, but also like the sun and the spring breeze, making people feel comfortable. I don't know how to describe it. This kind of person is an outstanding person. Even the leader of the Moon Palace can't compare to him, right? Yu Mingxin's eyes revealed a trace of strangeness. -13. Chapter 4084. While Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming were praising Xiao Hua's sword had already swept through several teleportation arrays and killed dozens of demon generals under his flying sword. At the same time, from these teleportation arrays, hundreds of Dao sect disciples also flew out with difficulty. They looked at Xiao Hua with longing as he killed the demon generals like cutting melons and vegetables. Damn it, Mahayana cultivation. No, the strength of the 9th level of essence qi is really not to be trifled with. Xiao Hua's hands were a little soft. Although these demon generals had strange figures and could freely travel through the void, in front of him, this method was not worth mentioning. If it were not for the fact that he wanted to save the Dao sect disciples in the teleportation arrays, he would be too lazy to kill them. How about I let Liu Yi and the others out to practice? However, just as this thought appeared, he immediately extinguished it. After all, he still did not know what kind of realm the ruins was. The information he got from Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming was far from enough to let him see the true appearance of the ruins. He could not let his disciples take too much risk. Within the space controlled by Xiao Hua within 1,000 miles, nearly half of the teleportation arrays had been cleared, and more disciples of the Dao sect were flying out. Boom boom boom. More than a dozen explosions were heard near Xiao Hua, but at the location of these explosions, more than a dozen demon monarchs that were at least 100 feet in size appeared with sinister smiles on their faces. These dozens of demon monarchs had strange fluctuations around their bodies, and the entire space trembled with these fluctuations, resisting the power of Xiao Hua's domain. Moreover, although these dozens of demon monarchs had huge figures, except for the faint demon runes around their bodies, they did not look any different from humans. Some of them even looked quite handsome. I wanted to lure a few void refining brats to have a taste. Who knew that it would actually attract an elder of the 3 sect? One of the demon monarchs tore Xiao Hua's domain with his hand and looked at Xiao Hua's flying sword with a smile. Look at the sharpness of this flying sword. If this demon monarch is not wrong, this should be the Tai Bai sect's flying sword technique. The other demon monarch nodded and said, the true qi that killed the demon general was similar to the Xiantian true qi of the Tai Bai sect. This human must be an elder of the Shundao sect. This matter is a little troublesome. The demon monarch, who was the furthest away from Xiao Hua, held a huge magic wand in his hand and stepped on a demonic beast. However, he shook his head and said, the Shundao sect's elder is too ruthless. His cultivation level should be above the 3rd stage Dao transformation realm. We might not be his match. Now that things have come to this, do we still have a choice? A demon general sneered. The demon horn on his forehead turned blood red. At the same time, he opened his mouth and a river of demon water gushed out. This demonic water did not directly rush towards Xiao Hua. Instead, it spread towards the other demon generals. Indeed. The demon monarch, who was the first to speak, nodded. Being able to kill an elder of the Shundao sect is also a great contribution to us. When the time comes, the demon emperor will definitely reward us. Even if we can't kill him, he definitely won't be able to stop us from escaping. Such a good thing, why not? Kill him. The demon monarchs seemed to ignore Xiao Hua's invincible methods. After a short discussion, they spoke in unison. Rivers of blood gushed out, and the demon monarchs also disrupted Xiao Hua's domain. Then, layers of spatial ripples rose up within 1,000 miles. Under the gaze of Yu Mingxin and the other Dao sect cultivators, Xiao Hua, the demon monarchs, and the demon generals who hurriedly flew out of the teleportation array disappeared into the void. Not good. Yu Mingxin saw this and his expression changed greatly. He said in alarm, "This is the demon race's spatial teleportation technique. Senior Xiao is a human. In this space, he definitely won't be able to withstand the demon race's innate divine ability. Senior Martial Brother, yes. How can we help Senior Xiao?" Yu Changming was also at his wit's end. Following Xiao Hua's disappearance, the domain that enveloped the entire space also disappeared. The Dao sect cultivators were all able to move. They were all overjoyed to see that they had escaped from death's door. The ones who disappeared before were all powerful demons. Now, although there were still some demon generals and demon soldiers killing humans in these teleportation arrays, these demons were no longer a threat. Some Dao sect cultivators organized themselves and headed towards these teleportation arrays to kill the demons. At the same time, some cultivators flew into the sky. "Senior Martial Brother Yu." Several Fragrance cult disciples called out. "Who was that senior just now? This little brother doesn't seem to have seen him in the sect before." "Senior Martial Brothers." Yu Mingxin shouted, "This senior is called Xiao Hua, Daoist Master Xiao. He is an outer realm cultivator. Because the demon race besieged our ruins, he mistakenly entered the ruins during the teleportation process. He doesn't know much about the demon race. Now, he even fell into the demon race's void demon formation. We have to quickly think of a way. Isn't Daoist Master Xiao a senior of our white sect?" A disciple of the Godly Knife School flew in the air and shouted, "That old man's flying sword looks very similar to our Tai Bai School's Heaven Shocking Sword. It doesn't matter whether he is a senior of the white sect or not." Yu Mingxin said unhappily, "Right now, we have to help Daoist Master Xiao get out of the demon formation. Those are 18 demon monarchs. Even if he is a senior of the white sect, it is inevitable that he will suffer losses in there." The Shen Dao sect disciple stopped there awkwardly. He bit his lips and frowned. Then, he said in a low voice, But that demon formation was set up by more than 10 demon monarchs. How can we help Daoist Master Xiao? Is there a disciple of the Misty school here?" Yu Mingxin suddenly thought of something and hurriedly called out, "I am from the Misty school." A handsome male disciple in the distance hurriedly raised his hand and answered, "Junior Martial Sister." Yu Changming seemed to have thought of something and said in surprise, "You, what are you going to do?" "Of course, I am going to ask the moon beast to help us." Yu Mingxin answered calmly, her eyes filled with determination. Are you crazy?" Yu Changming said anxiously, "If it were any other time, we would have asked the moon beast to come down to the mortal world. But now, the demon race has joined forces to seal the area around the ancient ruins. Let alone 10 years, even 100 years is not enough to break this seal. Also, if the moon beast is useful, the sect leaders would have asked it to come down to the mortal world. Why would they fight so hard against the demon race? Of course, I am not crazy." Yu Mingxin said with a smile, "My life was saved by Daoist Master Xiao. How can I watch Daoist Master Xiao get trapped by the demon monarchs? I don't know if the moon beast is useful or not, but this is the only thing I can do for Daoist Master Xiao." Then, Yu Mingxin turned around and looked at the disciples of various sects who were rushing toward them. She said anxiously, "Daoist Master Xiao killed a group of demon generals and saved us. How can we be so ungrateful and not save our benefactor when he is in a sea of fire? Senior Martial Brothers, I don't need you to waste your lifespan. I only need you to take out some of your blood essence and offer it to the moon beast. I will provide all the lifespan essence." "Okay." A few Dao sect disciples who were excited shouted, "Junior Martial Sister Yu is the first to bear the brunt. If you do not have enough lifespan essence, you can retreat. We are willing to sacrifice 10 years of our lifespan for Daoist Master Xiao." "Okay, if that's the case, we will sacrifice the moon beast immediately." Yu Mingxin was overjoyed when she saw this. She knelt down in midair and recited the incantation. A devout power of vow was emitted from her body. At the same time, the rest of the disciples held their Dharma treasures and stood guard around them. Some of them knelt down in midair as well. There were thousands of them. Everyone was reciting the incantation. Streams of power of vow rushed up to the sky and gathered together. However, although the power of vow was rolling around in midair, it did not rush up to the sky. After a few minutes, Yu Mingxin's face was filled with sincerity. She recited, "Moon Beast, O Moon Beast, I, Yu Mingxin, am praying in the lower realm. Please save Daoist Master Xiao Hua, Xiao Zhenren, from the hands of the demon clan. I am willing to sacrifice 10 years of my life to Lord Moon Beast." As she was speaking, Yu Mingxin opened her mouth and a drop of blood essence fell into midair. Then, Yu Mingxin raised her hand and a faint golden light appeared on her index finger. As Yu Mingxin drew a strange rune in midair, the blood essence vibrated slowly. Waves of energy rushed into the power of vow in midair. Quick! After a while, Yu Mingxin raised her hand and touched the blood essence. Puff! An even stronger wave came out from the blood essence and rushed up to the sky like a flying sword. Pa! With a light sound, Yu Mingxin turned her hand and the blood essence fell between her eyebrows. Wang! Yu Mingxin's body suddenly let out a rumbling sound similar to that of a Dharma treasure. 10 waves of energy rushed out from between her eyebrows together with the rumbling sound. The waves fell into the power of vow from before. The power of vow turned into a beast shape and rushed up to the sky. However, the beast shape only rushed out for 100 miles before it was blocked by a huge restriction. It could not rise any higher. Even the faint outline of the moon in the sky did not have any reaction. Yu Mingxin narrowed her eyes. Without hesitation, she spat out another mouthful of blood essence and cast the spell again. Thousands of Dao sect disciples were also reciting the incantation. An even stronger power of vow rushed out. The ruins had been surrounded by the devil race for a long time. Yu Mingxin was only a god refinement cultivator. Even if she used her life essence to cast the secret technique of the cultivation world, it was impossible for her to break through the devil race's formation. After 10 times, wrinkles appeared on Yu Mingxin's face. The power of vow from the blood essence only rushed up to a few hundred miles in the sky. Although Yu Mingxin could not see the power of vow, she could clearly feel that there was an iron wall in the sky that blocked her power of vow. Lord Moon Beast! Yu Mingxin raised her hand and poked her finger into her heart. Hot blood gushed out. Junior sister. Yu Changming was so distressed that he almost cried. He knew that this poke might not be able to take Yu Mingxin's life. However, Yu Mingxin would lose more than just her lifespan. As expected, after hot blood gushed out, Yu Mingxin cast the secret technique of sacrifice again. Yu Mingxin's face quickly withered and her hair turned white instantly. Yu Mingxin wailed, "Lord Moon Beast, I am willing to sacrifice my life to invite Lord Moon Beast to come to the mortal world. Spiritual Master Xiao, please save my life. I am willing to exchange my life for yours." -13. Chapter 4085. Following Yu Mingxin's words, the outline of the bright moon in the sky suddenly became clear. An indescribable fluctuation transcended the distance of space and suddenly fell into the power of hope of thousands of disciples. Whoosh! Like a golden dragon breaking through the chains, Yu Mingxin's essence blood rushed into the sky along with a large amount of power of hope, breaking through the sky at the place where the fluctuation fell. Woo woo! In just a few breaths, the place where the moon palace's fluctuation fell, the space began to distort intensely. An extremely vast and sacred aura poured out from the crack in space. Yu Mingxin's wrinkled face was filled with ecstasy. The other disciples were also ecstatic, and devoutly knelt down again. As for Xiao Hua, he saw the bloody space mixed with the strange fluctuation quickly enveloping him. Moreover, a kind of spatial force was born from the fluctuation, as if a dozen forces were dragging him into the void. Although Xiao Hua had the ability to resist this force, looking at the vague smile of the demon monarch behind the bloody mist, Xiao Hua sneered even more. He simply gave up resisting, and his figure disappeared into the void along with the fluctuation. Xiao Hua had just returned from the void, Why would he be afraid of fighting the demon race in the void? When Xiao Hua's figure landed, he took a closer look. This void was different from the previous void. It was suffused with a strange blood-red color. Xiao Hua scanned it with his divine sense and immediately understood that this was a void boundary similar to the one in the blood drop paradise. The blood-red fog rapidly corroded Xiao Hua's divine sense. However, Xiao Hua's divine sense was as tough as steel. The moment it came into contact with the blood-red fog, it immediately retreated. The blood-red space did not affect his divine sense at all. Ha ha! Several wild laughter came from the edge of the bloody space. The 6 demon monarchs in the shape of 6 stars revealed their demon bodies amidst their laughter. The demon monarchs' demon bodies were several hundred zhong in size, and the black flames and bloody light on them condensed into strange demon patterns. Each demon pattern was like a small world, and inside it was filled with roars, blood, hatred, and other negative emotions. Xiao Hua was not in a hurry to attack, he only released his domain to protect himself within 100 zhong. He calmly looked at the numerous demon monarchs, and secretly laughed in his heart. Damn, these demon monarchs are really different from the demon generals I saw in the Dawn Rain continent. Moreover, this demon race's technique is also higher level than the blood drop paradise. My devil body has already completed the blood drop grotto heaven, and there are no other techniques for further cultivation. Now that I have come here by chance, although I have yet to figure out what kind of world the ruins is in, this technique is the real deal. There are more than 10 demon monarchs in the void, and other demon generals. They should have techniques of the demon race, right? This Xiao only needs one technique. Even if this Xiao can't cultivate this technique, when I see second senior brother in the future, he can still use it. Haha, these stupid pigs. How could the demon monarch, who was despised by Xiao Hua as a stupid pig, know of Xiao Hua's wishful thinking? Seeing Xiao Hua standing there in a daze, he couldn't help but laugh out loud again and shouted, "Ha ha ha, you human, obediently become this demon monarch's blood food. If this demon monarch is happy, I can even release your soul and let you fall into the netherworld to start anew. Otherwise, I will let you be like those wandering souls, unable to reincarnate for thousands of years." While speaking, that demon monarch seemed to be demonstrating his power. He waved his hand in the air, and a pitch-black banner was taken out. On the banner, numerous bloodlights surged, and countless wandering souls were shouting. There was even a soul that was emitting golden light that was about to fly out from the banner. Damn it! The devil monarch was unable to control the devil banner and spat out a mouthful of devil blood onto the golden soul. Ah! The golden soul roared as it covered its head and rolled around in the air. Devil chi flew out from the banner and pulled the soul into it. In just a few breaths of time, wung, 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 the sound of an army galloping could be heard. That golden soul turned into a valiant general riding on a jet-black demonic beast. It stepped out of the void, and the halberd in the soul's hand gave off an indescribable fluctuation. It actually made Xiao Hua's hair stand on end. How can you make the first move? Another demon monarch beside the demon monarch was anxious. Didn't we agree to attack together? As he spoke, the devil monarch hastily raised his hand and clapped. A pitch-black brilliance frantically flew out from the top of his head. That brilliance transformed into an image that was exactly the same as the devil monarch in midair. His hand was actually holding a devil sword like a Dao sect cultivator, and he stabbed it towards Xiao Hua. In this blood-colored space, under the thrust of the demon sword, the previous violent wave immediately fell in front of Xiao Hua's domain in a few breaths. Ha ha! Xiao Hua laughed, and patted his head. Demon brothers, don't be anxious. Come one by one, this little one has a considerate service here that will satisfy you. Boom! But at the top of Xiao Hua's head, a 9-colored Buddhist light gushed out, and Buddha body's 8-foot golden body appeared along with the Buddhist light. The moment body appeared, the Buddhist light immediately tore the blood-colored space to a size of 100 zhong. Wherever the Buddhist light went, all the blood color disappeared, and all the space collapsed. Namo Mettria Buddha. Body chanted the name of Buddha, and said, "Before Buddha, a seed of karma, today it bears fruit." The Sarira is the spirit, and body has achieved the golden body. As body's voice fell, his hands formed a Buddhist seal, and the power of mountains, like a heavenly dragon roaring, rushed towards the demon monarch's sword light, and the power of karma, like a sea of blood, rushed towards the demon banners. So, this is the Buddha kingdom golden body. The two demon monarchs were shocked. How could he appear here? However, after being surprised, extreme greed appeared in the eyes of the two demon monarchs. One of the demon monarchs shouted, "Everyone, this Buddha kingdom golden body belongs to us. No one can snatch it from us." While speaking, the two demon monarchs not only activated their demon weapons, but also stepped on demon flames, and personally rushed over, as if this body was a great tonic. "Damn it!" The third demon monarch shouted, "Why didn't I make the first move? Haha, then I'll take this human elder as my food." Following this demon monarch's roar, another demon monarch beside him also shouted, "How can you be his opponent? I'll help you. We'll share it together." Roar. The third demon monarch stepped on a demon beast that was at least 1,000 jong long. The demon beast spat out demon flames from its mouth, and on its wings, there were thousands of jong of demon flames that rushed towards Xiao Hua. The fourth demon monarch waved his hand, and tens of thousands of tentacles quickly spread in the blood-colored space, attacking Xiao Hua faster than the demon flames. "Didn't this Xiao say? One by one, not a single one will be left out." Xiao Hua smiled proudly, but he didn't activate his divine ability. Instead, he flipped his palm and landed on the top of his head. Boom! Another five-colored light gushed out, and a Xiao Hua wearing a scholar's robe rushed out while stepping on a five-colored auspicious cloud with his hands behind his back. The scholar cultivator Xiao Hua landed in the air, and the aura surging around him was also the nemesis of the demon Qi. Wherever the multicolored light and auspicious cloud touched, the blood-colored space melted, and waves of whales came out from the blood-colored space. Thousands of demons were killed by this multicolored light. The scholar cultivator Xiao Hua sang, "5 qis unifying as my earth, 3 flowers gathering as my sky, Xiantian true qi as my body, Civil Star Lord as my name." As the scholar cultivator Xiao Hua waved his hand, 2 sword lights soared into the sky, respectively tearing the blood-colored space apart, and rushed towards the two demon monarchs fiercely rushing towards her. This. The fifth demon monarch looked at the sixth demon monarch, who was also surprised, and said with some disbelief, "This human cultivator, how many primordial spirits did he cultivate? Could it be that he has already surpassed the Tao transformation realm of the cultivation world? How is that possible?" The sixth demon monarch sneered, "If he had surpassed the Tao transformation realm, he would have already entered the Moon Palace. Why would he need to suffer here? Damn it, everyone, take your time. I want to see how many primordial spirits this little Shandao sect elder has cultivated." While speaking, the two demon monarchs also activated their divine abilities. One transformed into 1,000 feet tall demon and rushed down, while the other's demon body disappeared and turned into hundreds of millions of demons, rushing towards Xiao Hua like a flood. That's all. Xiao Hua was extremely calm, and once again patted his head. Boom! A pure dragon chi soared into the sky, and a 5-clawed golden dragon with supreme auspicious light surging around it flew out. As soon as the 5-clawed golden dragon appeared, streams of dragon chi formed a jade necklace. Although the jade necklace's light was not as bright as the Buddhist light and innate true chi, it still destroyed most of the blood-colored space. Roar! The 5-clawed golden dragon let out a dragon roar, and similarly sang, "100 million years of fate formed my soul, a dragon pool cast my body, the primordial world condensed my soul, and the dragon vein formed my name." The dragon's body swayed, and in the blood-colored space, it turned into thousands of feet long, and pounced towards the two demon monarchs who were already close to it. The blood-colored space was already on the verge of collapse. Under the Buddhist light, Body activated his psyche power and fought evenly with the two demon monarchs. In the 5-colored true chi, of course, when Chu was not to be outdone. His 2 flying swords were like swimming dragons, dealing with the 2 demon monarchs with ease. Relying on his physical body and chanting the heavenly dragon language technique, he gradually suppressed the 2 demon monarchs. Xiao Hua chuckled and said, "Demon brothers? Do you have any other tricks?" Buzz. The surrounding space trembled, and dozens of blood-colored lights surged out again, reinforcing the space. The remaining 12 demon monarchs appeared with indescribable expressions. They looked at the 3 fighting groups, then looked at the complacent Xiao Hua, and exchanged glances with each other. Then, another 2 demon monarchs stepped on their demonic beasts and rushed out, as if they wanted to see what tricks Xiao Hua had up his sleeves. Ha ha! Xiao Hua did not hesitate to pat his palm again. Under the horrified gazes of the demon monarchs, the formless Yuanying stepped on a thunderbolt and appeared in front of the demon monarchs. The formless nascent soul was originally formless, but it was able to reveal itself in the void. It was only 3 feet tall and was surrounded by lightning. As soon as it landed in the blood-red space, the surrounding space was pulverized by a series of thunderbolts. A gentle voice came from its mouth. Thunderbolts are my name, thunderbolts are my weapons, thunderbolts are my actions, and heavenly retribution is my fate. -13. Chapter 4086. As soon as he finished speaking, the formless nascent soul named Thunder gradually expanded under the control of the green-robed Xiao Hua. It turned into a cultivator with a similar figure to Xiao Hua. It held 2 thunderbolts as weapons and faced the 2 demon monarchs. What is this thing? The demon monarchs were puzzled when they saw the nascent soul appear. However, an indescribable temptation was born from the nascent soul's spiritual body. The demon monarchs couldn't help but drool. Kill tilde, another 2 demon monarchs shouted. Demon clouds appeared under their feet and they roared as they pounced towards Xiao Hua. Chimpage. Xiao Hua snorted coldly and slapped the door again. Another wave of dense, desolate aura rushed out. This aura frightened all the demon monarchs, causing them to tremble slightly, as if they wanted to escape. However, when they saw Xiao Hua, who was 100 feet tall, flying out, greed appeared in their eyes. Bone-tempering Xiao Hua laughed and said, "Bone-tempering 7 colors into my body, origin gathering into my soul, desolate wilderness casting into my soul, celestial descent creating my name." As bone-tempering Xiao Hua, who called himself a celestial being, pounced towards the 2 demon monarchs with the Big Dipper fist, the other demon monarchs were slightly stunned. One demon monarch said curiously, This seems to be similar to my demon realm's great cycle of stars fist technique. This thing that's filled with desolate aura, how can it understand my demon realm's fist technique? Could it be that this is a desolate variant possessed by my demon realm's senior? A demon monarch guessed. Damn it, these 2 things are taking advantage of us. The other demon monarchs were somewhat jealous. If they occupy this desolate variant, I'm afraid they can quickly advance to demon emperor, or even demon lord. This desolate variant is no longer the primordial spirit of a human cultivator. The other 2 demon monarchs were very alert. They hurriedly urged the demon clouds to fly out and laughed, "Let us see the means of this human cultivator." Seeing 2 more demon monarchs charging at him, Xiao Hua laughed out loud. Bronze light flashed around his body as he executed the heavenly law's embodiment technique. As his body grew bigger, the phoenix parasol flew out from the light. An even more violent demonic energy filled the blood-red space. A clear cry came from the phoenix parasol, and the voice of the phoenix parasol resounded throughout the entire space. The ancient heavenly phoenix became my body, the holy bloodline gathered my soul, the divine demonic array created my soul, and the phoenix parasol tree is my name. As the phoenix parasol flapped its wings, a demon clan aura that was even stronger than dragon vein Xiao Hua's surged out in all directions. The phoenix parasol was like a bolt of lightning as it flew across the sky and landed in front of the 2 demon monarchs. As the demon chi danced in the air, layers of demon runes condensed into ancient runes, blocking the demon chi and demon flames of the 2 demon monarch. Why did the desolate wilderness demon race appear again? All the demon monarchs were shocked. If the celestial being still had some desolate wilderness aura, then the phoenix parasol was soaked in desolate wilderness aura from head to toe. However, this desolate wilderness aura was slightly thin and not as thick as they had imagined. Now, there were only 6 devil monarchs left. 2 of them couldn't hold themselves back and jumped out. They brandished their devil weapons and summoned a devil fire that was 1,000 feet long to charge at Xiao Hua. They even shouted, "That human, I want to see what other tricks you have." Although Xiao Hua couldn't understand what the two demon kings were talking about, he gave a faint smile. Green light surged out from between the eyebrows of his enormous golden body. Puff! A dark green stream of light rushed out. Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua, who was wearing an ancient magus outfit and a crown on his head, flew out. Xiao Hua held the YA pen in his hand, smiled faintly, then opened his mouth. Tens of green seal characters flew out, one after another turning into the voice of gods and ghosts in midair. When the heaven and earth were born, my soul was born, the sun and moon transformed into my soul, the chaos transformed into my language, the prehistorical magus overlord is my name. This sound easily tore apart the blood-colored space, and the green light even surrounded the two demon monarchs. The soul power on the YA brush that could give the dragon painting finishing touch trembled, and a large amount of demonic chi was turned into nothingness. The remaining 4 demon monarchs trembled in midair. Xiao Hua's methods were getting more and more inconceivable. These demon monarchs who had always been fearless could no longer imagine what other tricks Xiao Hua had up his sleeves. They looked at each other and the bloody light surged around their bodies. Their figures gradually turned transparent. Since things have already come to this point, why do you still want to run? Xiao Hua sneered. Demon chi surged around Xiao Hua's body, and the demon monarch Xiao Hua flew out of Xiao Hua's heavenly laws embodiment technique. The 4 demon monarchs saw the demon monarch Xiao Hua's demon chi. Although they were stunned, disdain appeared in their eyes. They were about to flee, but they stopped. Greed appeared in their eyes. They wanted to devour Xiao Hua. However, Xiao Hua sneered and sang, "An immortal weapon formed my soul. Billions of blood spirits cast my soul. An ancient demon weapon formed my body. Endless slaughter is my name." As Xiao Hua's voice drifted out, the demon monarch Xiao Hua waved the demon monarch Xiao Hua's left hand. Boundless demon chi turned into monstrous demon flames that surged towards the 4 demon monarchs. When the 4 demon monarchs saw the demon monarch Xiao Hua's demon chi, they shouted in unison, "Demon monarch Xiao Hua, you! How do you have demon monarch Xiao Hua?" At this point, the 4 demon monarchs no longer dared to be arrogant in front of demon monarch Xiao Hua. Their demon chi surged rapidly, and their bodies seemed to fade away. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua sneered, "All of you, stay here." As he spoke, Shijiang waved his devil blade, but he did not slash at the 4 demon monarchs. Instead, he raised his blade and slashed down, sealing off the surrounding space. Looking at Xiao Hua again, he rubbed his hands, and several rays of crystal light fell into the air. They transformed into small snake-like crystal threads that fluttered around the 4 demon monarchs. Whenever the demon monarch's devil chi came into contact with the crystal threads, they would explode into pieces. In just a few breaths, the 4 demon monarchs were forced into a ball by Xiao Hua. Do you know what it means to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it? Xiao Hua, you looked around at the battle that was taking place within 100 kilometers. He said indifferently, "It would be easy for this old man to kill all of you. However, in order to beat you at your own game, I had no choice but to make you fall into my trap. Now that this old man's plan has succeeded, all of you, just obediently become my dishes." As he spoke, Shi suddenly waved his demonic blade. The bodies of the 4 demon monarchs trembled. They tried their best to activate their demonic chi to block, but the surrounding space was sealed by Xiao Hua. Not only were they unable to produce their demonic flames, they were also unable to use their innate ability to escape through the air. As the demonic blade descended, more than 50% of their bodies were chopped off. Demon monarch Xiao Hua's face revealed true ferocity. He opened his mouth, and demon chi flew out, turning into a net that covered the 4 demon monarchs. Under the urging of the demon flames, the 4 demon monarchs obediently fell into demon monarch Xiao Hua's mouth. "Fellow Taoists, you can make your move now." Xiao Hua looked at Shi with satisfaction as he once again opened his mouth and sucked in all the demonic chi around him. Only then did he open his mouth and laugh. Good. Body and the others laughed together. Their cultivation was much higher than the 2 demon monarchs, but in order to lure them, they had been hiding their strength. With Xiao Hua's command, they used all kinds of methods. Body took out his arms bowl, when Chu took out the Yuzhou cauldron, and one by one, they captured the demon monarchs in front of them. As for demon monarch Xiao Hua, his demon blade danced, and he easily killed dozens of demon generals. Thank you, big brothers. Demon monarch Xiao Hua was very careful. He bowed to the other primordial spirits, then opened his mouth again. The primordial spirits sent the captured demon monarchs into demon monarch Xiao Hua's mouth. Looking at demon monarch Xiao Hua devouring the 18 demon monarchs, Wen Chu and the others clasped their hands and entered Xiao Hua's body. Taking advantage of this time, demon monarch Xiao Hua opened his mouth, and all the demon chi and demon flames in the blood-red space fell into his stomach. Xiao Hua looked around, nodded, and said, "Not bad. We have achieved a great victory in our first battle. Congratulations. It's all thanks to big brothers. This little brother is nothing." Demon monarch Xiao Hua was very humble. Xiao Hua looked at demon monarch Xiao Hua and the demon blade on his left arm, and said, "These demon monarchs seem to know the origin of this demon blade. Carefully look at their memories, and their cultivation techniques, and those that are suitable for you to cultivate yourself. If there are any extra, you have to transfer them and leave them for Zhong Qingxiao in the future." "Yes, little brother understands." Demon monarch Xiao Hua nodded, and his body began to transform. And at this moment, an extremely powerful wave penetrated from outside the void. Demon monarch Xiao Hua frowned, and the demon blade in his hand was about to swing out. "You can go back." Xiao Hua calmly instructed, "Wait for me to go and see what happened." "Yes, sir." Demon monarch Xiao Hua turned into a wisp of green smoke and entered Xiao Hua's body. The delusion breaker eye between Xiao Hua's brows opened, and a silver-white pillar of light landed in the void, easily tearing open a spatial crack that was several zhong in size. At this moment, the ripple swept across Xiao Hua's body and turned elsewhere. "Oh, what is this?" Xiao Hua tore open the void and stepped on the air. He couldn't help but be surprised, only to see a strange demon beast that was thousands of zhong in size crawling in the air. This demon beast looked like a rabbit, but its entire body was covered with scales. A golden horn protruded from between its blood-red eyes. The powerful ripple came from this golden horn. On the back of the monster, a pair of wings that were thousands of zhong in size emitted a slightly holy moonlight. The remaining demonic energy near the teleportation array was all dispersed by this moonlight. "Daoist Master Xiao." A hoarse voice with pleasant surprise entered Xiao Hua's ears. "You? Who are you?" Looking at this old woman who was about to die, Xiao Hua's eyes were filled with confusion as he asked in a low voice. I. This old woman was naturally Yu Mingxin. Her eyes were filled with ecstasy, and tears were already flowing down. She opened her mouth, but didn't know how to explain. "No, you are." Xiao Hua looked at Yu Mingxin's familiar clothes and the expression in her eyes. Suddenly, he seemed to understand something and cried out in surprise. "Daoist Master Xiao." Yu Changming hurriedly flew over and said with a smile, "She is Junior's junior sister, Yu Mingxin." "You? How did you become like this?" Xiao Hua was very puzzled. He looked around and saw that the thousands of Daoist disciples were facing the moon beast that they had summoned. They were all kneeling on the ground, not daring to stand up. "Daoist Master Xiao." Yu Changming hurriedly explained, "Junior sister saw you fall into the demon monarch's demonic array." After Yu Changming explained the situation, Xiao Hua's heart softened. He smiled and said, "You silly girl, if this old man didn't want to, how could a mere demon monarch take this old man away? Open your mouth." -13. Chapter 4087. When Yu Mingxin heard Xiao Hua calling her a silly girl, her tears flowed down uncontrollably. When she saw Xiao Hua in a difficult situation and remembered that Xiao Hua had just saved her life, she panicked. When she thought of the moon beast, it was as if she had grasped onto a life-saving straw. She did not consider the consequences at all. Now that she thought about it, she felt a little scared. When Yu Mingxin heard Xiao Hua's order, although she did not understand, she still obediently opened her small mouth that was full of wrinkles. Xiao Hua reached out his hand and a rejuvenation pill fell into her mouth. Along with the numbing lightning, The medicinal liquid flowed into Yu Mingxin's stomach. It was as if time had turned back, and it was also as if a spring breeze was caressing her face. Her wrinkled face was filled with youthfulness, and her white hair turned black. This rejuvenation pill was made by the green-robed Xiao Hua and the scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua together. It was not as simple as just restoring youthfulness. Although Yu Mingxin could not completely recover the hundreds of years of her lifespan that she had lost for Xiao Hua, with the help of the rejuvenation pill, she could still recover most of her lifespan. Daoist Master Xiao. Looking at her wrinkled hands becoming plump little by little, how could Yu Mingxin not know the miraculous effects of Xiao Hua's medicinal pills? In the end, Yu Mingxin waved her hand, but on the surface of the mirror, a beautiful and delicate woman like a flower and jade appeared once again. Yu Mingxin's heart thumped wildly. She said tenderly, "Many thanks for Daoist Master's rejuvenation technique." "No need." Xiao Hua smiled and said, "You gave up your life essence for me, so I naturally have to replenish it for you. This is what I should do." Puff puff. Just as Xiao Hua finished speaking, a strange sound came from beside Xiao Hua. Then, a powerful wave swept through the void and landed on Xiao Hua's body. A shadow that was a few feet tall appeared beside Yu Mingxin. It was the shadow of the moon beast that was a few feet tall. The moon beast that was 1,000 feet tall was indeed intimidating, but the shadow that was a few feet tall was as cute as a rabbit. Especially when the shadow of the moon beast was sniffing something beside Yu Mingxin and flapping its wings anxiously, it was really unbearable to look at. Spiritual Master Xiao. Yu Mingxin understood the moon beast's thoughts. She begged softly, "Do you still have any more pills?" "Lord Moon Beast seems to like that pill." Xiao Hua looked at the moon beast and rolled his eyes. He smiled and said, "You were summoned by Miss Mingxin, so you can be considered to be fated with her. Don't forget her name, she is Yu Mingxin, a disciple of the fragrant cult in the ruins." Puff, puff. The lunar beast seemed to have understood what he was saying. It flapped its tiny wings. Xiao Hua raised his hand and threw another rejuvenation pill into the moon beast's mouth. Boom! The lunar beast's wings trembled, and the entire shadow shattered into pieces. Then, the lunar beast let out a long cry at the moon shadow in the sky. Apart from 2 pieces that remained on the ground, the rest fell into the lunar beast's body. Then, a wave of energy shot up into the sky, and the moonlight shone down as well. The lunar beast's body started to shrink rapidly, and in a moment, it disappeared. The moonlight also disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. Swoosh! As the moonlight disappeared, the 2 pieces of the lunar beast's shadow also disappeared. However, Xiao Hua and Yu Mingxin were shocked at the same time. They saw a faint image of the lunar beast appearing at the same spot on their right hand. Damn it! Yu Mingxin's heart was filled with happiness. She hurriedly kowtowed to the moonlight. Xiao Hua, on the other hand, was shocked and could not help but curse. The lunar beast's strength was nothing to Xiao Hua, but its method was really strange. Xiao Hua actually did not know how the fragments fell into his hands. "Farewell, Lord Moon Beast." Thousands of Daoist cultivators kowtowed together as they shouted, "This lunar beast is a little strange." Xiao Hua squinted his eyes and looked at the vague outline of the moon. "This moon palace is even stranger. I just don't know if my cultivation technique is different from the ruins. Otherwise, I would really want to go to the moon world to take a look." After sending off the lunar beast, the thousands of Daoist cultivators bowed together and said, "Juniors thank Spiritual Master Xiao for saving our life." "Hehe, you're welcome." Xiao Hua waved his hand and helped all the cultivators up. He smiled and said, "We are all from the human race. Of course, we have to face the demon race together. Moreover, I am very happy that all of you are praying for me together just now." Immediately after, the various sects and clans recommended a few disciples to meet Xiao Hua and ask him to take care of the matters here. Unfortunately, how could Xiao Hua make the decision? He smiled and said, "Although I am your senior, I am still new here. I am not very clear about the ruins. You can discuss it first. When you need me, just tell me." "Yes." A few disciples who were of virtue replied and started to discuss in low voices. In just a moment, they had already decided on a plan. They came together to report. It was nothing more than sending disciples back to the various sects to report, leaving most of the disciples here to guard the teleportation formations. They also asked the disciples who knew a little about teleportation formations to repair the teleportation formations first. When the seniors from the various sects who were proficient in teleportation formations arrived, all the teleportation formations would be repaired. Xiao Hua did not raise any objections. They all nodded in agreement and let these disciples pass down the orders. Although Xiao Hua did not say anything, his existence was where everyone felt at ease. Following these orders, the group of disciples set up defenses, transmitted messages, and repaired the teleportation formations in an orderly manner. However, after a moment, those few disciples left again with somewhat difficult expressions. They said in a low voice, "Daoist Xiao, we juniors have another piece of news that we do not know whether it is true or false. Please make a decision." "Oh, what news?" Xiao Hua's heart stirred, and he asked somewhat strangely. At this moment, a large man dressed in embroidered clothes held a treasured saber in his hand. He landed in front of Xiao Hua and bowed, saying, "Junior is Shindao sect's disciple Wn Wuxin. Greetings, Daoist Xiao." Wan Wuxin. Xiao Hua blinked his eyes. Out of the corner of his eye, he swept a glance at Yu Mingxin, who was standing at the side with a smile. An indescribable sense of familiarity arose in his heart. Thus, Xiao Hua smiled and said, "What news do you have?" "This." Wan Wuxin was somewhat hesitant. He said in a low voice, "Junior received a piece of news, but could not distinguish whether it was true or false. Junior originally wanted to use the teleportation formation to send the news back to Shindao sect and ask the seniors in the sect to make a decision. However, when I arrived here and saw that the teleportation formation had been attacked by the Devil Clan, I felt that this news was conclusive. However, when I thought that there were actually more than 10 Devil Monarchs lying in ambush here, Junior felt that this news was also a trap. Thus, Junior did not dare to be certain. Moreover, Junior did not dare to tell the disciples of the other sects. "Tell me, I have my own judgment." Xiao Hua was somewhat impatient. He interrupted Wan Wuxin's words and asked. Wan Wuxin's face was slightly red. His words indeed had the intention of shirking responsibility. Since Xiao Hua had seen through it, he could not help but say, "Junior received news that a Devil Emperor personally led 500,000 Devil soldiers and Devil generals to the southwest of the ruins. He wanted to exterminate White Cloud Monastery, Soft Sound Palace, Fuwu Ridge and 10 other sect. There were several thousand disciples at the teleportation formation. Of course, there were disciples from White Cloud Monastery and other sects. When these disciples heard this, they could not help but become anxious. A few of them immediately bowed and said, "Daoist Xiao, our sects are in trouble. Daoist Xiao, please help us. Daoist Xiao's grace, we will never forget it." This. Xiao Hua was somewhat hesitant. Killing a few devil generals and capturing a few devil monarchs did not pose too much pressure to him. It was as easy as lifting his hand. However, if he was facing a devil emperor, facing hundreds of thousands of devil soldiers and devil generals, it was not something that he alone could decide the outcome of the battle. Moreover, how could such an important piece of news be easily obtained by a disciple like Wan Wuxin? Even if Xiao Hua used his heel to think, he would know that this was a trap. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly thought of something. He waved his hand and said, "You all discuss it first. This old man still has some urgent matters to attend to." After he finished speaking, Xiao Hua's figure flashed and disappeared from everyone's sight. After that, everyone felt that a strong hurricane was born high up in the sky. It swept towards the surrounding 10,000 li radius. For a moment, sand and stones flew everywhere. The sky was filled with chaos. "Hey! What is Senior Xiao doing?" Wan Wuxin looked at everyone with some astonishment and asked in a low voice. Several people shook their heads slightly. Sensing that the surrounding temperature was gradually turning cold, they were also puzzled. Yu Mingxin smiled. "Senior Xiao is using a secret technique to detect the whereabouts of the nearby devil race. He should be preparing to go to the southwest border to help the 10 sects. However, he is afraid that the previous 10 devil monarchs will have an even bigger ambush near the teleportation formation. Daoist Xiao is really considerate. Everyone sighed in their hearts. They hurriedly lowered their heads to discuss how to send a message to the 3 major sects and how to send disciples to assist the 10 sects. Xiao Hua naturally wasn't searching for the traces of the devil race like Yu Mingxin said. He just thought of the devil monarch's devil banner and knew that under the siege of the devil race, the souls of the cultivators who died in battle couldn't fall into the 9 underworlds. Therefore, he opened his illusion breaker eye and urged the netherworld origin power of the yin side of space to collect the souls of the cultivators who died in battle. This collection didn't matter, but it gave Xiao Hua a fright. Not only were there many wandering souls near the teleportation formation, even the surrounding 10,000 li radius and 100,000 li radius were also filled with wandering souls. Presumably, the devil race didn't have time to refine and devour the cultivators who died in the successive battles. When Xiao Hua returned with a full load, Wn Wuxin and the others also discussed the result. Some disciples even left the teleportation formation and rushed to other places to spread this news. Senior. Wn Wuxin said carefully, Junior got this news by chance. As he spoke, Wn Wuxin told the process of how he got the news. It was nothing more than going deep into the enemy's rear and relying on some small tricks to hear some secrets of the devil race. Finally, Wn Wuxin said again, Junior knows this process sounds very unrealistic, but the language of the devil race is abnormally obscure. Our human cultivators have never been able to understand it. Especially the lowest level devil soldiers, they come from all parts of the devil world. The syllables they speak are also different. However, Junior had some luck previously and obtained a jade slip. Inside it is the pronunciation method of the devil world. Although Junior can't understand the majority of the devil race's pronunciation, there are still 2 or 3 obscure syllables that Junior can understand. Yet, what you heard from the demon soldier is what you understand. Xiao Hua asked thoughtfully as he pinched his chin. Wan Wuxin nodded vigorously. Indeed. Then, Wn Wuxin took out a bright silver jade slip and handed it to Xiao Hua. He said respectfully, Senior, if you don't believe me, you can take a look. -13. Chapter 4088. Seeing Wn Wuxin's worry and panic, Xiao Hua shook his head and said with a smile, It's not that I don't believe you. I just feel that my cultivation hasn't reached the level where I can fight against the Demon Emperor. Moreover, I have to face 500,000 demon soldiers, so I'm a bit hesitant. Xiao Hua's words were very honest, far from the hypocritical excuses of an ordinary senior. This made everyone feel more at ease. A cultivator said with a smile, Senior, please rest assured. In fact, although there are only a dozen sects in the southwest border, there are millions of disciples. However, there aren't many experts in these sects, so it's difficult to resist the Demon Emperor. Senior defeated a dozen demon monarchs before. Although your cultivation isn't as high as the Demon Emperor, I'm afraid it's not much different. The heads of the 10 sects, plus Senior, should be able to hold on for several days. At this time, the news of the Demon Emperor's attack on the southwest border has already spread. In a few days, the disciples of the 3 great sects and other sects will come to the southwest border. Senior, you just need to delay until then. Wan Wuxin. Xiao Hua nodded slightly, raised his hand and said, Give me your jade slip, I want to make a copy. No problem, Senior, please. Wan Wuxin hurriedly handed the jade slip to Xiao Hua. At the same time, several other disciples hurriedly took out different jade slips from their spatial rings and handed them to Xiao Hua one by one. They all seemed to be jade slips that recorded the demon race's language. After Xiao Hua made a copy of these jade slips, he looked at them slightly and said, I'm going to the southwest border. Is there a transmission array that can directly go there? Which disciple is willing to lead the way for me? I'm willing. Not only were the disciples of the 10 sects enthusiastic, Wn Wuxin, Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming also flew in front of Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua looked at Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming and said with a smile, You too don't need to go. You've just escaped, so you should hurry back to the fragrant religion. Bring the southwest border matter back to the sect, and also my apology. When I return from the southwest border, I will pay a visit to your sect master. Yu Mingxin seemed to insist, but Xiao Hua shook his head at her and said, moreover, Miss Yu's profound qi was damaged, so you must go back and recuperate. Otherwise, wouldn't my pills be wasted? If you still want to have a head full of white hair, you can follow me to the southwest border. Yu Mingxin stuck out her tongue. Thinking back to her nightmarish experience, she nodded obediently. Let's go. Xiao Hua waved his hand and flew into the air. He shouted, we'll rush to the southwest border. I hope it won't be too late. Yes. The crowd of about 100 cultivators responded and followed Xiao Hua into the air. But after a short moment, Wen Wuxin turned his head and looked around, asking tentatively, Senior Xiao, could it be that we're just going to fly over like this? Xiao Hua's flying speed had long surpassed ordinary flying artifacts, so he didn't need to use the Pegasus, flying chariot, and other flying artifacts. Furthermore, he had just arrived at the ruins, so he wasn't familiar with anything in the ruins. Of course, he didn't know that there were other flying artifacts in the ruins other than teleportation formations. Xiao Hua smiled and said, this old man is someone from the outside world. I'm not familiar with the situation in the ruins. Feel free to speak your mind. Yes, Senior. Wan Wuxin smiled apologetically. He looked around and said, among the 10 sects in the southwest border, the one closest to here should be Baiyun Taoist Temple, right? Indeed. A Baiyun Taoist disciple hastily flew over and said, from here to my Baiyun Taoist Temple's Baixia Ridge, it's several million li. If we were to simply fly over, I'm afraid it would take several months. Although there are some teleportation formations in the middle, the closest teleportation formation is a million li away. However, since the Devil Emperor wants to invade the southwest border, he would most likely seal off the southwest 4 territories, so those teleportation formations can't be used. Also, because this is the teleportation hub, there aren't any sects nearby. Another disciple added, the closest sect is Blood Palace Hall in the east. It's also a million li away. That Blood Palace Hall is 2 million li away from Baiyun Taoist Temple. Right now, the news has already been sent out through the passage near the teleportation formation, but even if Blood Palace Hall sends out disciples, they wouldn't be as fast as us. Furthermore, Blood Palace Hall has a grudge with Baiyun Taoist Temple, and 50 years ago, they were attacked by the Devil Race, so they probably wouldn't send out disciples to fight. Only when the 3 major sects, incense-spreading cult, Shandao sect, and Misty School, receive the news, the conference hall will jointly issue orders, and only then will the sects send out disciples to fight. Wan Wuxin continued, otherwise, I would have already told the other disciples. It's a bit messy. Xiao Hua scratched his head. He wasn't good at commanding, and now that he had just arrived at the ruins, he was completely clueless about the Daoist Devil War, so he was even more confused after hearing all the disciples talking at once. Fortunately, Wan Wuxin whispered from the side, Senior Xiao, the flames of war have spread throughout the ruins. Our Dao sect has more than 100 sects. Other than leaving enough disciples to guard the mountain gates, the other disciples have formed an army to fight against the Devil Race at the Outer Realm Great Array. The Devil Emperor suddenly left the battlefield and attacked the southwest border. Even if the army received the news, they would have to mobilize their troops immediately. Their actions are delayed, so they might not be able to save the 10 sects. Now, we have to rely on the disciples left behind by the other sects. Our Shandao sect, the 3 major sects, and the conference hall naturally wouldn't sit by and do nothing. However, if we had to use the teleportation formation to reach Blood Palace Hall and then fly to Baiyun Taoist Temple, I'm afraid it would be too late. As for perfected person. At this point, Wan Wuxin was somewhat hesitant, and he transmitted his voice, Senior, you don't have to take my words seriously when I asked you to save Baiyun Taoist Temple. Oh, why? Xiao Hua was stunned and asked curiously, since I'm going to Baiyun Taoist Temple, why can't I save them? Senior's cultivation is heaven-defying and has already reached the Dao transformation realm, but the Devil Emperor is personally commanding 500,000 devil soldiers. Senior, you definitely can't face them alone. Moreover, Senior doesn't have to fight the Devil Emperor for real. WN Wuxin explained, with Senior's divine ability, as long as you appear near Baiyun Taoist Temple and disturb the Devil Army, the Devil Emperor will know that their plan has been discovered by our Dao sect cultivators. They will definitely retreat and definitely won't be besieged by our Dao sect army. Oh. Xiao Hua came to a realization and nodded. I understand. You want me to disturb the Devil Emperor and make him mistakenly think that the army is coming? Yes. WAN Wuxin nodded. That's exactly what Junior meant. In other words, it doesn't matter whether you go or not. Xiao Hua looked at WN Wuxin and asked meaningfully. WN Wuxin's expression changed slightly, and he hurriedly replied, Senior, you're overthinking. This news was brought by me. I don't know whether others will go or not, but I will definitely go with Senior. Then let's go together. Xiao Hua was even more puzzled. Why do you still ask us if we can fly over? Senior. WN Wuxin was somewhat helpless and could only say, what Junior means is that if we fly over like this, I'm afraid that the Devil Emperor will have already destroyed the 10 southwestern sects. If we have some flying Dharma treasure or some spatial transmission secret technique, our speed will be faster. Xiao Hua sighed. WAN Wuxin, if you have anything to say, just say it. Who knows what you're going to say if you keep being secretive and only say half a sentence? Yes, Junior understands. WN Wuxin's forehead was somewhat sweaty, but he was also secretly complaining in his heart. There were some things that he could say directly to Senior, but there were some things that he couldn't say for the sake of Senior's face. How could he know that Senior Xiao Hua knew nothing about the ruins and had to ask about everything? Don't you have flying Dharma treasures? Xiao Hua asked curiously. Naturally, we all have flying Dharma treasures, WN Wuxin carefully replied. However, our flying Dharma treasures are relatively low level and are only used for short distances. For long-distance flights, we usually use transmission arrays. Therefore, what Junior means is, does Senior have a Dharma treasure for long-distance flights? If you do, we can ride Senior's Dharma treasure and directly go there. Hee hee. Xiao Hua laughed, waved his hand, and said, if it was before, this old man naturally didn't have one. But before we arrived at the ruins, this old man just happened to build a flying boat. Now, it can be used. As Xiao Hua waved his arm, a clap of thunder was heard out of thin air. Soon after, a huge black shadow appeared in front of everyone. A thunderous momentum rushed out from the black shadow, blowing all the cultivators to the point that they couldn't stand steadily. When everyone saw the thing that appeared in mid-air, their eyes unconsciously widened, and their faces were full of surprise. In mid-air, a thunderboat that was several thousand feet in size flashed with endless lightning, majestically floating there. The thunderboat was entirely ashen in color, and on the surface of the thunderboat, there were clear runes that flowed in the shape of lightning. The bow of the thunderboat was like a flying sword, and a layer of lightning arc was produced, instantly passing through the surface of the thunderboat and landing on the stern of the thunderboat. The stern of the thunderboat was also like a flying sword, but when the lightning reached the tip of the flying sword, it turned into a sphere of lightning that was 1 foot in size and entered the thunderboat. As the lightning arc flashed, the entire thunderboat let out a rumbling sound. This rumbling sound was incessant, and it seemed to resonate in everyone's heart. Quan Wuxin and the other cultivators of the ancient ruins had seen many flying Dharma artifacts. Some of them might be bigger than this thunderboat, and some of them might be more majestic than this thunderboat. However, they had never seen a flying Dharma artifact that was driven by lightning. WN Wuxin groaned, and asked somewhat weakly, Senior, this flying boat of yours, how many primordial stones do you need to drive it? Haha, if I need to use primordial stones to drive it, then this old man will be poor to death after flying for a while. I'm afraid that no matter how many primordial stones I have, it won't be enough. Xiao Hua laughed, waved his hand, and said, everyone, get on. Yes, Senior. The disciples were overjoyed, and they all flew onto the thunderboat. When they arrived on the thunderboat, the disciples realized that the thunderboat was covered with puppets. These puppets were in human form, and some were in beast form. They were either driving the flying boat or patrolling the thunderboat. Everything was in good order. Wan Wuxin tilde Xiao Hua shouted, "Do we fly directly to the southwest?" "Yes, senior." Wan Wuxin hurriedly replied, "At this time, we just need to fly to the southwest." While speaking, Huan Wuxin pointed in the southwest direction, as if drawing legs on a snake. -13. Chapter 4089. All right. Xiao Hua nodded and raised his hand to form hand seals, hitting a few puppets who were the leaders. Then, he hit a few more hand seals at the core of the thunderboat. There was a small lightning pool there. As the lightning pool flickered, thin lightning water flowed out. The thunderboat rushed towards the southwest with a rumbling sound. Xiao Hua had obtained a damaged thunder-concealing bead from Daoist Han in the Misty Mountain Maze formation back then. Xiao Hua relied on this thunder-concealing bead and Do Shanjuan's cultivation method to cultivate the art of lightning to great success. When he was building the thunderboat, he suddenly had a strange idea. He abandoned the thunderboat's origin stone formation and used a lightning pool instead. This lightning pool was built by Xiao Hua according to his comprehension of the thunder-concealing bead's true essence of lightning. Although it was not perfect, it was more than enough to provide lightning for the thunderboat. With this lightning pool, the thunderboat built by Xiao Hua was more than twice as fast as the thunderboat of the Thunder Control Sec. The thunderboat flew up. Xiao Hua looked at Wan Wuxin and said with a smile, "Wan Wuxin, what's your cultivation level now?" Wan Wuxin answered respectfully, "Senior, please no. Junior's aptitude is dull. I'm only in the Qi refinement realm." Qi refinement realm? Xiao Hua was stunned. However, he understood in a moment that this Qi refinement realm was definitely not the Qi refinement realm that he knew. Moreover, the void refinement realm that Yu Mingxian mentioned earlier was definitely not the void refinement realm that he knew. He thought for a moment and asked, "How are the cultivation realms in the ruins divided?" "Senior." Wan Wuxin was slightly stunned. His eyes rolled a few times and he understood something. "Hence," he answered honestly, "the cultivation of the ruins is divided into 8 major realms: essence refinement, Qi transformation, Deity transformation, void transformation, and Dao transformation. There are 9 levels in each realm." Xiao Hua was dumbfounded. The division of the realms in the ruins was almost the same as the division of the Confucian cultivators. Except for the last realm, the Confucian cultivators were the void refinement realm. However, the Dao sect of the ruins separated each realm of the Confucian cultivators into 2. They were also divided into 9 levels. "Damn it, what's going on?" Xiao Hua cursed in his heart and casually said, "Show this old man your cultivation method." "Ah!" Wan Wuxin was stunned and hesitated. Xiao Hua glanced at him unhappily and said, "There's no need to use your Shindao sect's cultivation method. Ordinary cultivation methods will do." Yes, Junior knows his mistake." Wan Wuxin blushed and hurriedly took out a jade slip and handed it to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua immersed his spirit sense into the jade slip and took a look. His brows wrinkled even more. Inside the jade slip was a simple cultivation method. There were only 3 realms: essence refining, Qi transforming, and Qi refining. What was recorded inside were genuine Dao sect cultivation techniques. What magic arts, magic power, and so on were all similar to the Hidden Immortal Continent and Dawn Rain Continent. However, the essence of cultivation was completely different from what Xiao Hua knew. The cultivators in the ruins did not cultivate their nascent souls, but their primordial spirit. "Damn it, it's really messed up." Xiao Hua scratched his head. What the hell is going on? The true essence of Confucian cultivation was to cultivate the breath of life in the chess. Cultivating the 5 Qis unification. However, they took the wrong path. I don't know when they started to cultivate their primordial spirits and pursue power like the Dao sect. My Dao sect originally stole the power of heaven and earth and communicated with yin and yang to give birth to babies. We focused on cultivating our nascent souls. How come we started to cultivate our primordial spirits here? In the end, who is the authentic one and who is the reference? The essence of my Dao sect's cultivation, could it be that it was also lost? Could it be that this Xiao also practiced wrongly? My Dao sect is the one that cultivates primordial spirits. It seems like, even if this Xiao wants to keep the ruins, I'm afraid it's impossible. The path of cultivation is completely different. Without cultivation methods, without medicinal pills, there's simply no way to stand out. Unless this Xiao is willing to give up this Mahayana realm and cultivate from the beginning. This Xiao's final path is still to return to the hidden immortal continent's great snow mountain. Xiao Hua waved his hand and returned the jade slip to Wen Wuxin, letting him go. He then stood on the flying boat and looked out of the thunderboat. Seeing the thunderboat piercing through the sky as if it was splitting the wind and cutting the waves, unbridled and fast as lightning in the sky above the ruins, the group of disciples was also drunk. Because they knew clearly in their hearts that the devil race had besieged the ruins for hundreds of years and had gone through countless battles in the ruins. The devil race was proficient in spatial escape technique. During the battles, the space of the righteous ruins was destroyed by the devil race. Don't look at the clear and cloudless blue sky, who knows how many black holes and space cracks existed in it. The flying magic tools of ordinary cultivators were the most afraid of these things and never dared to fly at full speed. Only the large magic tools within the sect dared to try to increase their speed. However, if it was like the thunderboat that was rampaging, there really wasn't any. In fact, not to mention the group of disciples, even Xiao Hua himself was so proud that he wanted to raise his tail. After this thunderboat was built, it had always been in the space and had never been taken out to fly. When it was flying, Xiao Hua released his divine sense to monitor the abnormal situation in front of him. When a space crack appeared, Xiao Hua tried to use the thunderboat's lightning to destroy it. When the huge body of the thunderboat entered the void, the power of space in the crack was about to tear the thunderboat apart. Xiao Hua discovered that the wood he obtained in the folded jade legacy realm was 100 times better than the iron palm wood in the Yazi auction house. Although it was slightly deformed under the power of space, the overflowing lightning on the surface of the thunderboat caused the power of space to sway, so this thunderboat wouldn't be torn apart. Finally, Xiao Hua felt relieved and sat cross-legged on the top of the thunderboat. He released his netherworld origin power and absorbed the wandering souls into the yin side of the space. Along with the descent of the wandering souls from the ruins, the population on the yang side of the space, after thousands of years of stagnation, began to multiply at an accelerated rate. A vigorous life force floated in the space, converged, fused into the void, and fell into the body of the heavenly Dao Xiao Hua. At the same time, even more karma that was 10,000 times more complex than the life force also fell into the hands of the karma Xiao Hua. Although thousands of years had passed in the space and 20,000 years had passed in the heavens prison, the cultivation of the heavenly Dao Xiao Hua and the karma Xiao Hua still didn't make much progress. However, the divination technique given by Zhu Xia had made considerable progress under the comprehension of the karma Xiao Hua. Those comprehensions had already been obtained by Xiao Hua when the Jade Archive entered the space. Currently, Xiao Hua didn't know how effective this divination technique was. However, when he thought about how he was able to deduce some karma through the divination technique when he was merely at the 5th grade of essence energy, Xiao Hua had high hopes for this divine ability. Just as he was thinking, Xiao Hua slightly frowned and looked ahead. He opened his mouth and was about to remind some of the disciples who were meditating around the thunderboat. However, after thinking for a while, he closed his mouth. Then, he rubbed his hands and a thumb-sized crystal radiance landed on the thunderboat. Buzz! A loud rumbling sound resounded from the edge of the thunderboat. Several lightning flashes appeared and strengthened the defense of the thunderboat by several times. At the same time, the speed of the thunderboat increased by 30%. In just the time it took to eat a meal, the sky in front of the thunderboat was covered with dense blood clouds. Blood shadows that were thousands of zhong in size were roaring in the blood clouds. These blood shadows were either holding demonic artifacts or white bones. They looked extremely malevolent. Following the blood clouds, blood water flowed like a waterfall. The blood water enveloped the space within 10,000 li. Moreover, in the air 10,000 li away, Groups of demonic soldiers holding demonic artifacts roared and danced in the air while riding on demonic beasts. Xiao Hua, who was sitting on the thunderboat, had long sensed that the number of wandering souls in the vicinity was several times more than before. Wan Wuxin didn't really calm down to cultivate. On one hand, he was somewhat apprehensive about the accuracy of his information. On the other hand, he was also pondering about what happened after he met Xiao Hua. Previously, when Xiao Hua activated the Thunderboat's defense, he was already vigilant. When he saw the blood clouds in the distance, Wan Wuxin suddenly stood up and shouted, "Daoist Xiao, there's a demonic array of the demon race in front of us." Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Don't worry, this old man has already seen it." But Wan Wuxin shouted again, "Daoist Xiao has already seen it. Why are you still moving forward? Let this old man ask you, is this the main battlefield of the Daoist and Demon War?" Xiao Hua asked indifferently as he watched the bloody waterfall in the distance with narrowed eyes. Xiao Hua had the soul cultivator Xiao Hua activate his soul arts and control his netherworld origin power. Wan Wuxin was taken aback, and naturally shook his head. Of course this is not the main battlefield. Since this is not the main battlefield, could the so-called Demon King be here? Should not be. Since that's the case, what do I have to fear? Moreover, if the Demon King is here, it would save me a trip to the southwest border. As he spoke, Xiao Hua slapped the top of his head. His Mahayana aura rushed out and rushed toward the blood clouds in the distance. Seeing that the huge blood clouds were violently swaying under the impact of his aura, Xiao Hua couldn't help but frown slightly. Good. Since Daoist Xiao is willing to fight, then we'll bathe in blood with you. Wan Wuxin and the others were also fired up by Xiao Hua's words, and all of them prepared to charge out of the lightning arc. Boom! Just as the blood clouds were swaying, the roar of countless beasts erupted from the blood clouds. The entire blood clouds were torn into millions of pieces, and hundreds of devilish soldiers mounted on devilish beasts flew out from the clouds. At the same time that the blood clouds were torn apart, the spiritual sense concealment formation was opened, and Xiao Hua was able to clearly see that the devilish army was densely packed with devilish soldiers. From a distance, each and every one of them looked like a bunch of green-headed flies. After a quick sweep of his spiritual sense, Xiao Hua could already tell that there were over 100,000 devilish soldiers. Xiao Hua couldn't help but draw a sharp breath as he exclaimed, "If there are over 100,000 devilish soldiers on this side, then wouldn't there be 600,000 devilish soldiers on all sides? How could there be so many of them?" Xiao Hua had never been very sensitive to numbers. Even though he had experienced the Daoist sword battle on the Dawn Rain continent, the total number of people who participated in that battle was only in the hundreds of thousands. When had he ever seen 600,000 devilish soldiers in a Daoist sword battle? Since there were 600,000 devilish soldiers, then what about the Daoist cultivators? Naturally, there would be no less than this number. Thinking back to how he had prepared to use this lightning arc to attack the devilish formation, Xiao Hua felt that he had been far too arrogant. -13. Chapter 4090. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua had already spoken too confidently. Now that the spilled water couldn't be undone, he could only charge forward. However, although there were several tens of thousands of devil soldiers, their strength was limited. Xiao Hua's remorse slowly dissipated. He was now in the Mahayana realm. The void divine ability that the devil race was so proud of was just a show in front of him. Although it was somewhat difficult to kill several tens of thousands of devil soldiers by himself, it wasn't impossible if he used all his methods. Crackle, crackle. In the air, a series of explosions resounded. Xiao Hua's pressure was blocked by the tens of thousands of devil soldiers. Moreover, in the midst of the explosions, waves of bloody impact landed on Xiao Hua's Niwen Palace, causing Xiao Hua to have an indescribable feeling of dizziness. Xiao Hua knew that this was the devil race's method to deal with Dao experts. Thus, he smiled and withdrew his pressure. Then, he slapped his forehead. Clang! A sound of metal and stone rang out. A nascent soul hand that was several hundred kilometers in size flickered with faint golden light as it fell from the sky. What divine ability is this? Ordinary nascent soul divine abilities in the Dawn Rain continent were already rare divine abilities in the ruins. WN Wuxin and the others were somewhat flabbergasted. The large golden hand descended, forcibly imprisoning more than 10,000 devil soldiers. However, the devil inscriptions around the devil soldiers flickered with strange fluctuations. Although their resistance was weak, they still stubbornly resisted. Xiao Hua's large hand grabbed and only killed about 2,000 devil soldiers. These devil soldiers were all huge in size, but when they fell into Xiao Hua's hand, their bodies rapidly shrank. Woo! The large hand quickly tightened, causing a gust of wind to rise near him. Countless devil blood splattered, and specks of devil fire fell into the air. Just like that, the 2,000 devil soldiers were turned into blood paste by Xiao Hua's hand. That gust of wind was Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua activating his netherworld origin power. Whether it was the souls of the devil soldiers or the souls of the humans on the devil artifacts, they were all absorbed into his space. Moreover, at the same time Xiao Hua activated his divine ability, the exterminating devil flames and devil blood were condensed into a fist-sized pearl and fell into his body for the devil spirit Xiao Hua to cultivate. Immediately after, Xiao Hua clawed 2 more times, killing close to 5,000 demon soldiers. When he was about to claw for the 4th time, the several tens of thousands of demon soldiers released powerful ripples at the same time. The rhythm of these ripples was similar, and along with the ripples, devil flames and devil blood flew into the air. The several tens of thousands of ripples were like tens of thousands of weak little blades of grass, blocking Xiao Hua's hand. The devil flames and devil blood then formed a several thousand zhong tall demon body in the air. The devil body had just been born when a fist smashed towards Xiao Hua's large hand. The inky black fist was crushed by the massive hand, and at the same time, the light emanating from the hand dimmed significantly. Xiao Hua's nascent soul hand was vanquished by tens of thousands of devilish soldiers. Damn it, it's a bit strange. Xiao Hua muttered. Above his head, a huge pillar of light suddenly appeared. After entering the void, it instantly hit the devil body's head. The devil body's black chi and devil blood disappeared in the pillar of light, and the huge void was repaired in a moment. Everyone on the lightning boat watched such a wonderful battle with extraordinary splendor in their eyes. When Xiao Hua's attack was thwarted, WN Wuxin shouted, "Senior Xiao, this devil body is the condensation of the devil spirits of tens of thousands of devil soldiers, it's not a real devil body. Junior has heard of our Dao sect's primordial spirit devouring technique, it's very effective." Damn it. Xiao Hua was helpless. He laughed bitterly in his heart. This Xiao only cultivates the nascent soul, not the primordial spirit. How would I know about the primordial spirit devouring technique? Although Xiao Hua didn't know about the primordial spirit devouring technique, he knew about lightning arts. A dark green brilliance appeared on his forehead, and green seal characters fell into the air. Rumble. The space within hundreds of kilometers was filled with 3 corpses yin lightning, killing more than half of the devil body. The power of the lightning arts seems to have increased greatly in the ruins. Xiao Hua's lips curled into a smile. He thought in his heart, and shouted again, "Sit tight and watch this old man's moves." Huan Wuxin hastily sat down cross-legged, while Xiao Hua urged the thunderboat to speed up once again. Boom boom. The sound of space trembling could be heard as the thunderboat crushed the somewhat transparent devil body. The thunderbolts on the thunderboat shattered the devil body. Under the lightning boat's attack, nearly 30% of the tens of thousands of devil soldiers fell from the sky. Immediately after, the lightning boat rushed into the blood-colored waterfall under the blood clouds. The blood-colored waterfall was abnormally tough. When the bow of the lightning boat landed on it, it actually couldn't pierce through it. Following which, the entire thundership let out an even louder roar as several lightning bolts charged into the blood-colored waterfall. It was as though the entire world was trembling as the lightning bolts tore a crack in the blood-colored waterfall. As soon as the crack appeared, countless demons pounced on the thundership, baring their fangs as they tore at the thundership. Blood even dripped onto the thundership and flowed down. Dang, dang, dang. The sounds of devil weapons hitting the lightning boat frightened WN Wuxin and the others, causing goosebumps to appear all over their bodies. Rumble, rumble. The lightning on the lightning boat seemed to be endless. It flickered continuously, and its power didn't decrease at all. After every lightning bolt, all the blood would disappear, and all the devils would be killed and turned into powder. The lightning boat's invincibility was revealed once again. Xiao Hua, who was controlling the thundership, saw through the defense of the thundership and saw the demon formation clearly. Just as he had expected, the inside of the demon formation was filled with bloodstains. Every 10 feet of bloodstains, there would be a demon. The lightning boat traveled for hundreds of miles, and it seemed as though it was traveling through a blood sea in the netherworld. Alas, things are getting out of hand. Xiao Hua sighed. This Daoist Devil War really has many things that this Xiao can easily participate in. If not for the lightning pool driving the lightning boat, this Xiao would have lost face. Just as Xiao Hua was thinking, a powerful divine sense penetrated from afar. Although a part of it was eroded by the devil array, it still easily landed on the lightning boat. Of course, the lightning boat's defense blocked the probing of this divine sense. When this divine sense landed, several lightning bolts even hit it. When the divine sense saw how powerful the lightning boat was, it hurriedly withdrew. Xiao Hua quickly released his divine sense and was about to make contact with that divine sense. Woo! At this moment, all the demonic soldiers and demonic generals within the demonic array quickly dodged. A blood-colored demonic golem that was almost 10,000 feet tall flew over from afar. This demonic golem was surging with black flames. Strands of black flames and demonic blood coiled around the demonic golem's body, forming huge knots. Within these knots, there were many demonic generals dancing and roaring. It looked very much like a simple demonic armor. As soon as the devil statue came out, it flapped its wings and a hurricane suddenly appeared. Its tail had already landed on the lightning boat. Boom! The entire lightning boat's defense cracked like glass. The lightning was suffocating, and the whole lightning boat rolled in the devil array. Roar! Just as the devil statue was about to stretch out its devil claws and tear the lightning boat apart, Xiao Hua roared and rushed out with the wishful steel staff in his hand. As soon as Xiao Hua flew out, he was only a few dozen feet in size. Then, his whole body flashed with a bronze brilliance. Boom! A strong moonlight fell from the sky. Not only did it tear a crack in the demonic array, but it also fell on Xiao Hua's Dharma body. His transcendence golden body also expanded rapidly. In just a few breaths, a golden body that was as tall as a demon statue also stood in the demonic array. How could Xiao Hua give the devil statue a chance? As soon as the golden body was formed, he immediately stepped on the demon cloud and waved the wishful steel staff at the devil statue. Roar! The devil statue was obviously angry. It waved its devil wings, and its claws and 4 feet reached into the void at the same time. It actually grabbed Xiao Hua from all directions. Woo woo! The wishful steel staff danced and protected Xiao Hua's body. It was watertight. Boom boom! With a series of vibrations, the attack of the devil statue seemed to be hit by the wishful steel staff at the same time. The wishful steel staff was heavy, and Xiao Hua's current strength was even more incredible. Ao ao! The devil statue roared in pain and its figure retreated quickly. Catcher! Another flash of lightning, and Xiao Hua's golden body suddenly fell in front of the devil statue. Boom! With a loud noise, Xiao Hua's fist had smashed into the body of the devil statue. A black flame mixed with demon blood sprayed out and fell on Xiao Hua's arm. Zilla! The sound of corrosion filled the world again. However, the demon blood only corroded the bronze brilliance of the golden body a little. When the surface of the golden body was covered with a faint layer of demonic chi, the demon blood and black flame slowly disappeared. Woo! The devil statue was in great pain. Its claws danced in the air, and the previous sound of the wind fell on Xiao Hua's arms. Cha. An obscure sound came from the surface of Xiao Hua's body. The devil statue's claws flashed with bright blood. Looking at Xiao Hua's arms, there were several shallow cracks, but it did not penetrate the flesh at all. Hee. The devil statue was obviously shocked. It did not expect the golden body of the human cultivator opposite it to be so strong. At the same time, The devil statue's left wing hurriedly chopped down, trying to force Xiao Hua to pull his arm out of the devil statue. Unfortunately, at the same time, Xiao Hua's arm blocked it without fear. Ka. Once again, there was a sound of metal. The devil statue's left wing was beaten into a bloody mess, and it had to retreat quickly. Good. In the distance, a figure of 100 feet in size stepped on a flying sword and rushed into the demonic array. Seeing such a brave person like Xiao Hua, it could not help but shout out to him. Xiao Hua glanced at the armored cultivator and swayed again, smashing the head of the devil statue with the wishful steel staff. The devil statue waved its claws as it retreated, and 2 demonic hammers appeared out of nowhere. These demonic hammers were as big as mountains. Woo woo. They made a whistling sound and smashed the wishful steel staff. Fellow Daoist, don't fight with this devil monarch. This kind of devil monarch is very powerful. If fellow Daoist has a powerful spell, you can use it and kill him. The cultivator had not finished speaking. Ao. Several devil generals had already flown out from the demonic array, waving their devil weapons and urging their magical powers to stop him, forcing him to not even finish his words. -13. Chapter 4091. Boom. The devil hammer and the wishful staff collided, and a hurricane suddenly rose. Woo. One of the devil hammers soared into the sky like a star. The cultivator who was fighting with the devil general was dumbfounded. He looked at Xiao Hua's golden body in disbelief. It was the first time he had seen a human cultivator whose strength was comparable to the devil race's devil monarch. Xiao Hua sensed that this cultivator's spiritual awareness was different from the previous one. He knew that he had received a military order to come in and help. At this time, he knocked away the devil hammer of the devil monarch. After a little thought, he opened his mouth and the Teng Jiao shears flew out. A golden light like the rising sun illuminated the inside of the devil array. The raging devils in the bloody light howled, covered their blinded eyes, and shrank into the bloody mist. Swoosh! The golden light flashed past, and the demon monarch looked at his waist in disbelief. Layers upon layers of blood mixed with black flames gushed out from his waist. There was simply no time for him to dodge. The soaring dragon shears had already cut him into 2 at the waist. Who are you? The devil monarch only thought of asking at this time, and the devil chi in his waist was surging, quickly repairing the devil body. At this moment, above Xiao Hua's head, a 5-colored beam of light suddenly emerged and hit the devil monarch's heart faster than lightning. Boom! With a loud sound, the devil body, which was indestructible in the eyes of ordinary cultivators, and the layers of entangled devil armor outside were all turned into flying ash in this beam of light. The devil monarch raised his wings and flapped them weakly a few times, and his body fell backward with a bang. Ah! The cultivator's surprise had just passed. Seeing Xiao Hua kill the devil monarch, the excitement surged into his heart like a climax. However, Xiao Hua's subsequent actions made him puzzled. He saw Xiao Hua raise his hand and pick up a jade bottle. The jade bottle shone brilliantly, and a beam of light fell toward the devil monarch. The devil monarch's body disappeared along with the beam of light. In fact, he couldn't even stop the tens of thousands of red tentacles that rushed out of the Blood River demonic formation. Buzz! Before the excitement of the cultivators could disappear, they saw a new change in the demonic array. The blood-red color from before slowly condensed into pus. Large droplets of pus dripped down. Each drop of pus contained hundreds of tiny devils. Moreover, as the pus dripped down, the entire space trembled slightly. It was as if even the void was about to be penetrated. Not good. The cultivator turned pale with fright as he hurriedly slapped the top of his head, causing a lotus-like treasure to fly out. Pu. The treasure spewed out 2 halos of light, one blue and one white, which enveloped the cultivator's entire body. Following which, the cultivator sent a voice transmission, "Senior, hurry up and leave. This is the Demon Array's Blood Sea Transformation Array. It's formed when hundreds of thousands of demon generals and demon beasts fuse their demon blood essence together and devour each other. We Dao sect cultivators can't resist it alone." Not waiting for the cultivator to finish speaking, A crackling sound echoed out from within the devilish formation. With Xiao Hua's figure as the epicenter, it surged upwards in all directions. The large droplets of pus and blood all turned into green smoke within the thunderbolt. The cultivator was stunned once again. How can the thunder technique be used within the demon array? The cultivator was slightly stunned. Immediately, half a drop of pus and blood fell on the blue and white halos. ZZZT. With a muffled sound, the blood and pus easily penetrated the halos. The devil inside the blood and pus wantonly devoured the brilliance of the treasures and headed towards the cultivator's back. Not good. The cultivator turned pale with fright. He opened his mouth and a scarlet light rolled out and fell on his back. Unfortunately, where the scarlet light fell, the blood and pus only flashed with a blood-red light and actually devoured the scarlet light. It was completely useless. The cultivator didn't dare to be negligent. He didn't have time to say anything to Xiao Hua and urged his figure to escape from the demonic array. Moreover, at the same time his figure flew, the cultivator waved his hand and threw out a jade talisman. A pink brilliance passed through the halos and wrapped around the blood and pus. The pink brilliance was like a flower bud, and the blood and pus was like a maggot. It tried its best to drill into the flower bud. Even though the pink brilliance flourished, it still couldn't really stop it. What was special was that the cultivator fled in panic. In front of his head, there was a large drop of blood and pus that let out a ghostly howl and fell towards him. Looking at Xiao Hua again, under the thunder technique, the large amount of blood and pus was destroyed. However, above the lightning, there were still blood droplets that fell like a rainstorm. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and looked at the fleeing cultivator as well as the thunderbolt that stopped within the demonic array. He stretched out his hand and grabbed. No matter if it was the cultivator or the thunderbolt, they were all sucked into his hand. Then, Xiao Hua's body emitted lightning. Whoosh! His entire figure also flew in the direction the cultivator wanted to escape. Boom! In front of Xiao Hua's head, there should be a barrier of the demonic formation. Under the impact of Xiao Hua's golden body and lightning escape, a several thousand-meter-long crack was forcibly torn open. Xiao Hua's 30,000-meter-long golden body bullied the demonic formation and charged out from inside. As soon as Xiao Hua came out of the demonic array, his eyes immediately lit up. Hundreds of huge flying boats stopped within the space of 10,000 li. Each flying boat was surrounded by cultivators. On the flying boats, there were all kinds of powerful light pillars. These light pillars gathered together to form a huge light shield that protected the flying boats and the cultivators. Inside the light shield, there were many cultivators who formed a formation. Each of them urged their magic power and fought against the tentacles and devil generals that stretched out from the demonic array. The appearance of the thunderbolt and Xiao Hua naturally attracted the attention of the cultivators. However, they only used their divine sense or their eyes to sweep over them. They hurriedly fought with all their might. The light shield that protected the human race was abnormally weak. It seemed like the demonic array could collapse with just a little bit of attack. Fellow Daoist, quickly come and help me. Xiao Hua had just put down the thunderbolt and the cultivators when a loud voice immediately came from the group of flying boats in the distance. The divine sense that swept over was exactly what Xiao Hua had just seen. Xiao Hua naturally knew that the situation was critical. His whole body flashed with brilliance. While shrinking his transcendent's golden body, he teleported to the place where the voice came from. Xiao Hua's figure passed through the light shield. The light shield shattered with a poof sound. There was no effective resistance at all. In the center of the human cultivators, there was a square flying boat. At this time, there were no cultivators on the flying boat. Everyone flew to the sky above the flying boat. Above the flying ship, a yellow pagoda surged. This pagoda was divided into 9 levels, and these people were also arranged into 9 levels. Every cultivator stimulated their true essence and poured it into the pagoda. At the top of the pagoda, there was a scholarly-looking young cultivator. His forehead was dripping with sweat, and his hands were forming strange seals, causing a yellow beam of light to shoot up into the sky. It was also this light pillar that blocked the demonic array, not letting it fall. As soon as the big drop of blood and pus touched the yellow light pillar, it immediately condensed into fist-sized stones and rolled around the light shield. Hihi, fellow Daoist, please wait a moment. Xiao Hua looked up and down and nodded slightly. As he spoke, his figure flew to the side of the young cultivator. Just when the cultivators were a little puzzled, Xiao Hua made a gesture with both hands. The space within 1,000 miles was filled with a whimpering roar. Thousands of heaven and earth spirit chi gathered toward Xiao Hua. Just when all the cultivators' faces changed, Xiao Hua waved his hands. Woo! Above Xiao Hua's head, a palm thousands of miles in size appeared. Following Xiao Hua's gesture, it slapped toward the demonic array. Boom! There was a loud noise like a landslide. The huge blood array was suddenly opened thousands of miles wide. All the demonic soldiers and generals inside were either killed or scattered. The light pillar that was suppressed by the blood array also rushed into the demonic army with a woo sound. Hundreds of demonic generals were killed by this light pillar. However, after activating the spell, the light around Xiao Hua's body suddenly converged. His figure shook slightly and his face became a little pale. Senior, don't worry. Seeing Xiao Hua's magical ability, the young cultivator didn't dare to call him fellow Daoist anymore. He hurriedly shouted, Senior, please take a pill first. This junior can still hold on. No need. Xiao Hua's figure flashed and appeared next to the cultivator. He reached out and said, Give me the jade slip that controls the magic treasure. Yes. The cultivator didn't hesitate at all. He took out a jade slip and handed it to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua's eyes slightly changed. He used his divine sense to explore the jade slip. However, after a moment, he returned the jade slip to the cultivator and said, Step aside. Yes, senior. The cultivator's expression relaxed. He hurriedly withdrew his magic power and moved to the side. As soon as the cultivator left, the light pillar immediately dimmed. It looked like it was about to shrink back. Xiao Hua formed a spell with both hands and slowly landed on the pagoda. Although there wasn't any special fluctuation or brilliance, as soon as Xiao Hua's spell touched the pagoda, woo-woo, the entire pagoda let out a trembling sound. Immediately after, the previously dimmed light pillar rose again. Boom! The light pillar swept across the entire blood array. The demonic bodies of several thousand demonic generals were penetrated by this light pillar. This. The young cultivator next to him had just taken a pill and hadn't adjusted his breathing. He was immediately shocked by the scene before him. He was so shocked that he was somewhat speechless. He was very clear in his heart. This Juechen pagoda was his sect's important treasure. It had always been used when setting up formations. Although he'd heard that there was a Dao school senior who activated it by himself in the past, he'd never seen it. None of the current sect masters and elders in his sect were able to activate this Juechen pagoda to its best effect. However, this unknown senior in front of him had just glanced at the method to activate the Juechen pagoda and was able to display such a great effect. How could he not be shocked? This cultivator was also a talented general. Seeing Xiao Hua like this, he immediately shouted, Senior, activate the Juechen pagoda to defend the flying boat. Fellow brothers, we're going to the demonic formation to break it. Senior just killed a demonic monarch in charge of the formation. Right now is the best time to break the formation. Yes. The group of cultivators received the order and all withdrew from the surroundings of the Juechen pagoda. They stood around Xiao Hua and rested for a bit. After taking medicinal pills, they formed a formation again and ordered the cultivators near them to charge out of the light barrier. -13. Chapter 4092. At the same time Xiao Hua activated the Juechen pagoda, that young cultivator flew into the air and released his divine sense, calmly commanding the disciples. Senior, I'll have to trouble you to kill those 3 devil kings. While the young cultivator was commanding, he suddenly turned his head and said respectfully to Xiao Hua, Oh! Xiao Hua was startled, then his divine sense looked towards the direction the young cultivator was pointing at. Sure enough, the 3 devil kings activated the demonic formation, trapping a dozen or so cultivators. Those cultivators were about to die. Okay. Xiao Hua slightly nodded. The young cultivator smiled and said, "Many thanks, Senior." Just as the young cultivator finished speaking, he saw above the blood formation in the distance, woo. Astral winds suddenly rose, and an indescribable force descended from the sky. The 3 devil kings hastily wanted to raise their demonic artifacts to block, but the divine sense hammer that was like a star smashed down, smashing them into the air in an instant. 2 devil kings' demonic bodies were torn apart, 1 devil king's arm was broken. Those dozen or so cultivators escaped with their lives, each one of them beaming with joy. They activated their magic treasures and chased down, killing the 3 devil kings in a short moment. The young cultivator's smile froze on his face. He somewhat helplessly looked at the Juechen pagoda in Xiao Hua's hand. He originally wanted to ask Xiao Hua to activate the Juechen pagoda to rescue them, but he didn't expect Xiao Hua to actually use a divine ability, injuring the 3 devil kings without anyone noticing. Oh, there's also this place. Just as the young cultivator was about to release his divine sense to look at another place, Xiao Hua faintly muttered, then patted the Juechen pagoda floating in the air. The entire pagoda let out a happy rumble, and a beam of light streaked across the sky, instantly killing a devil king 1,000 li away. Seeing Xiao Hua so familiar with the Juechen pagoda, the young cultivator was completely speechless. He no longer diverted his attention to the safety of the flying boat, and wholeheartedly commanded the battle situation. As for Xiao Hua, while releasing the netherworld origin power to plunder souls, he also activated the Juechen pagoda to kill high-level devils according to the young cultivator's command. After no less than 3 days and 3 nights, that demonic formation finally slowly withdrew. However, the defeated demon soldiers and generals did not scatter. Instead, they left in an orderly formation, not giving the human cultivators any opportunity to attack. Even Xiao Hua, who wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to beat a drowning dog, sighed for a moment when he saw the strict demon formation and gave up the idea of pursuing. Woo! Seeing the devil army disappear into the void, all the cultivators screamed and cheered with tears streaming down their faces. They were already at death's door and were prepared to perish together with the devil army, but they were actually able to escape with their lives and even defeat the devil army. This was truly beyond their expectations, and they couldn't help but want to vent the joy of escaping from death's door. The young cultivator smiled as he looked around. He ordered the nearby disciples to arrange for people to clean up the battlefield. He himself flew in front of Xiao Hua and bowed. "Junior is Shindao sect's Ou Chu. Greetings, Senior. May I know Senior's Daoist name? There's no need to be so polite. This old man is Xiao Hua, and his Daoist name is Daoist Master Xiao." Xiao Hua smiled as he helped Ou Chu up. "So it's Daoist Xiao," Ou Chu said respectfully. "Junior brings my 120,000 Shindao sect's disciples to thank Daoist for saving our lives." As he spoke, Ou Chu bowed again. This old man already said, "There's no need to be so polite." Xiao Hua supported Ou Chu, not allowing him to bow. He smiled and said, "This old man just happened to pass by here. It was just a small effort. Moreover, this old man's help only increased the speed at which you defeated the devil army. It's nothing much." Sigh. Ou Chu's expression became even more solemn. However, he sighed and said, "This is all because Senior is trying to flatter my Shindao sect. Junior knows it very well. If not for Senior's sudden appearance, the devil monarch who was fighting with Junior would have blocked Senior's path. Junior would have been injured long ago. Moreover, if Senior didn't control this Juechen pagoda, how would we have the chance to counterattack? To be honest, if Daoist didn't come, 20,000 of my 120,000 Shindao sect's disciples wouldn't have escaped alive." Hee. Xiao Hua smiled and didn't say much. He passed the Juechen pagoda to Ou Chu and said, "This Juechen pagoda is really not bad." Ou Chu took the Juechen pagoda and put it away. He smiled and said, "That's right. This Juechen pagoda is my Shindao sect's sect-guarding treasure. It's a pity that my Shindao sect doesn't have an expert like Daoist Xiao to activate it. This treasure has been covered in dust." As he spoke, Oyu Chu raised his eyes to look at the thundership parked in the distance. He asked probingly, "Forgive Junior for being blind. Junior has never seen an expert like Daoist Xiao on the battlefield before. Senior, I'm afraid that you've already reached the Dao actualization realm, right?" He. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "This old man is from the outside world. Previously, I used the transportation array to go to another place. Perhaps when I was passing by the ruins, I was disturbed by those devil bastards and was accidentally transported to the tribute wasteland. After investigating carefully, this old man found out that the ruins is actually surrounded by the devil race. This old man can't even leave if he wants to." Oyu Chu quivered and hurriedly said, "Daoist Xiao, my Shandao sect is one of the 3 great sects of the ruins. It's also a branch of the Taibai sect. If Daoist Xiao doesn't have a place to stay in the ruins, this junior boldly invites Daoist Xiao to be a guest at my Shandao sect's Shenchao Peaks Zhenming Hall." How could Xiao Hua not know what Oyu Chu meant? He smiled and said, "Since I've arrived at the ruins, this old man will pay a visit to the Shandao sect, the incense school, and the misty school. However, this old man has to rush to the southwest border first." "Oh, right, Oyu Chu, your Shandao sect's disciple, WN Wuxin, received news that the Devil Emperor is leading 500,000 devil soldiers to ambush the 10 sects of the southwest." "Impossible." Oyu Chu shook his head and said, "The whereabouts of the Devil Emperors are uncertain. Even the sect masters of the various sects in the discussion hall couldn't find them using their secret techniques. How could an ordinary disciple obtain news about the Devil Emperors? If this news isn't fake, then it must be a trap. Hehe. This isn't up to this old man to decide." Xiao Hua smiled and brought Oyu Chu to the thundership. After removing the defense of the thundership, he released some of the disciples. Under Oyu Chu's astonished gaze, Xiao Hua stored the thundership into the space. Wan Wuxin and the others naturally recognized Oyu Chu. They all went up to greet him. Wan Wuxin blushed and told him the news. In front of Wan Wuxin, Oyu Chu naturally didn't reprimand him. However, he casually told him what he understood and said, "According to my understanding of the devil race, the whereabouts of the devil emperors wouldn't be known by ordinary devil generals, much less our human race. Of course, we can't rule out the possibility that this news is true. However, how could the devil emperors only bring 500,000 devil soldiers? The devil race isn't like our human race. They can reproduce as they wish without any special difficulties. Just now, the number of devil soldiers that besieged our Shandao sect was at least 500,000. Yes, this disciple knows." Wan Wuxin blushed. This disciple can't be sure, so he didn't dare to tell the other disciples. Only after meeting Senior Xiao did this disciple dare to say it. "Spiritual Master Xiao, please make the decision." Oyu Chu smiled. "Wuxin, this old man doesn't blame you. As long as we receive any news, regardless of whether it's true or false, we must report it to the sect for analysis. You did the right thing. However, the situation is urgent. Even if this news is true, I'm afraid we can't do anything about it." "Yes, this disciple understands," Wan Wuxin carefully replied. Oyu Chu then explained to Xiao Hua, "Junior led the troops to the Thousand Lakes embankment to rescue the 200,000 disciples who were trapped by the devil soldiers. When we arrived, we were surrounded by the devil monarchs. Since the danger has passed, Junior will continue to head to the Thousand Lakes embankment. Therefore, this junior can't possibly go to the southwest border. Of course, this junior will also instruct this subordinate to pass this news to the Central Army and ask the conference hall to make a decision and send disciples to rescue them." "Good." Xiao Hua nodded, "Then this old man can be at ease." Oyu Chu didn't delay and ordered a disciple to fly to the flying ship in the center. After a while, the disciple returned and reported that he had already sent the news. "Did the conference hall send any orders?" Oyu Chu asked again. The disciple shook his head. The conference hall didn't send any orders. At this point, the disciple looked at Xiao Hua again and said respectfully, "Also, the seniors of the conference hall have asked Spiritual Master Xiao to come to the conference hall if you have the time." Yes, this old man understands. Xiao Hua nodded slightly and looked at Oyu Chu, asking, "Do you have any extra magic tools to communicate with the conference hall?" Oyu Chu was shocked and said anxiously, "Spiritual Master, you are. This old man wants to go to the southwest border to take a look." Xiao Hua smiled, "However, this old man doesn't have any magic tools to communicate with. I'm afraid it won't be easy for me to contact the Dao disciples in the ruins. This magic tool is a secret creation of the sect. Every disciple who leads the army only has one." Oyu Chu smiled, "I'm afraid this item can't be lent to senior." "It doesn't matter." Xiao Hua waved his hand, "It's best if you have it, but it doesn't matter if you don't." Spiritual Master Xiao Tilda Oyu Chu thought for a while and advised, "This junior knows that senior's magic power is incomparable. Hundreds of thousands of demon soldiers are nothing in your eyes. Although the demonic formation from before is strange, if you want to leave, no one can stop you. However, you must know that you are alone. Even if you don't have the Demon Emperor, fighting hundreds of thousands of demon soldiers is beyond your power. Just like just now, senior may have killed thousands of demon generals, but under the demonic formation, you have no choice but to avoid it. Moreover, if you want to go to the Southwest 10 sects, you will have to fight against hundreds of thousands or even millions of demon soldiers. This junior knows the strength of the Southwest 10 sects very well. The 10 sects together might have millions of disciples, but how many of them can really fight? Especially since the 10 sects don't have a commander who can lead the army. The 100,000 disciples are like scattered sand. Even if you go, I'm afraid you won't be able to save many disciples. However, if it's a trap set by the Demon Emperor, you will have to face the Demon Emperor. Spiritual Master, why do you want to put yourself in a disadvantageous position?" "Yes, you are right." Xiao Hua nodded after listening to Oyu Chu's analysis. He wasn't a talented commander, so he naturally didn't know much about mobilizing troops. However, just now, when facing the demonic formation, Xiao Hua saw the use of mobilizing troops and the power of an army in battle. Although Xiao Hua could move unhindered within the demonic formation, it was impossible for him to destroy the demonic formation. -13. Chapter 4093. If Spiritual Master wants to exterminate the devil race, you can follow me to the Thousand Lakes embankment. There are countless devil race members there for senior to vent your anger on. Oyu Chu took the opportunity to persuade Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and shook his head, "Forget it. Since I already know about this, I won't feel at ease if I don't go and take a look." "All right." Oyu Chu saw that Xiao Hua insisted on going. He thought for a moment and said, "Since Spiritual Master insists on going, then I'll send 2,000 disciples to follow Spiritual Master. First, they can be dispatched by Spiritual Master. Second, they can give Spiritual Master some ideas." Xiao Hua looked at Oyu Chu with satisfaction and nodded slightly. However, after a moment, he rejected again. "This old man appreciates your good intentions. This time, I'm only going to the southwest border to take a look. Just as you said, fighting against the Devil Emperor and 500,000 devil soldiers is not something I can do alone. Therefore, not only do you not need to send disciples to follow me, you also need to bring along the disciples of the 10 sects on my flying ship. If the southwest border is really raided by the Devil Emperor, these disciples will be the descendants of the 10 sects. Oh right, if you have a map of the ruins or the southwest border, give it to this old man so that I won't get lost." "All right." This junior thanks Spiritual Master Xiao on behalf of the 10 sect. Oyu Chu handed a jade slip to Xiao Hua and bowed respectfully. The disciples of the 10 sects also bowed. When they stood up, Oyu Chu said, "This junior still has military matters to attend to, so I don't dare to stay here for long. This is junior's communication talisman. If senior returns from the southwest, you can send a message to this junior when you're near the conference hall." Xiao Hua took the communication talisman and looked at the cultivators who had already cleaned up the battlefield and were ready to leave. He said, "Hurry up and go. This old man hopes that you'll succeed. I'll be counting on Spiritual Master's auspicious word." Oyu Chu smiled and raised his hand, "Everyone, listen to my order. set off according to the four-army formation, Wang Wang. The dozens of flying ships began to rumble and light scattered everywhere. When Oyu Chu and the others boarded the ships, they lined up neatly and flew towards a certain direction. Xiao Hua took Oyu Chu's jade scroll and looked at it for a moment. Then, he looked at the stars in the sky and mocked himself. If I could find the 10 sects in the southwest with just the map in the jade scroll, why would I need Wn Wuxin to follow me? As he spoke, Xiao Hua's figure flashed, and he had already disappeared from where he stood. In the early morning, when the sun had just risen, Xiao Hua was sitting on top of a mountain peak. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the 3 suns as well as the outline of the full moon that was opposite to the suns. He thought to himself, this place isn't Dawn Rain Continent, nor is it Hidden Immortal Continent. The vital chi of heaven and earth in this space seems to be different. However, judging from the situation of the past few days, he can be used by this old man. However, even if I can use it, can the disciples in my space use it? Can those disciples who have successfully cultivated in the space survive in this space? This seems to be a problem. Moreover, what Oyu Chu said is correct. Although this Xiao is brave, in the end, he cannot compare to a group of people. There are more than 100,000 Fortune Gate disciples in this space. Moreover, the cultivation of these disciples was high enough. However, although these disciples' cultivation is high, they have not gone through a true life and death experience. In the future, they may encounter a bottleneck that they cannot break through. Now that there is a great formation in this space, it is the best opportunity for them to gain experience. If this old man can bring them out, it will be beneficial for them, and it will also be beneficial for the 10 sects in the southwest. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and pulled out the green-robed Xiao Hua. The current green-robed Xiao Hua did not need to rely on the formless nascent soul to condense his body. In the air, wind rolled and clouds surged, and a fist-sized crystal slowly condensed. As more and more vital chi condensed, a human figure appeared. In just a short moment, the green-robed Xiao Hua who looked exactly like Xiao Hua lazily stood in front of Xiao Hua. Fellow Daoist. Xiao Hua raised his hand and smiled. What do you think of I's idea? Of course it's good. The green-robed Xiao Hua nodded. I always felt that the disciples in my sect were lacking something. Previously, I didn't understand, but now that fellow Daoist has thought of it, I also understand. They are lacking experience. We must let them experience life and death, and experience the test of blood and fire. Alright, if fellow Daoist thinks it is possible, then there is no problem. Xiao Hua nodded. Now, the only problem left is whether they can leave the space or not. Indeed, the green-robed Xiao Hua was also somewhat hesitant. After all, they are using the spiritual light in the space to conceive their nascent soul. It is different from the vital chi of heaven and earth outside the space. This place is also different from the hidden immortal continent. I am also not certain. We have to try. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and asked, you should choose a disciple that you are certain of. Find a disciple who has just conceived a nascent soul. The green-robed Xiao Hua seemed to have already decided. His achievements are limited, and it is also very strenuous to conceive a nascent soul. If it is not possible, then let him reincarnate earlier. Sweat. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. He wanted to say something, but even if he opened his mouth, there was no way to teach him. After all, the green-robed Xiao Hua was only his primordial spirit, and in terms of emotions, he was not a real person. He could not ask him to respect every life like he did. Alright, we will do as you say. As Xiao Hua spoke, he concealed his figure and released his consciousness. He was prepared to immediately return that nascent soul realm disciple to the space if he found anything strange. As Xiao Hua released his consciousness, that nascent soul realm disciple appeared in the air. He looked around in confusion, and then his gaze fell on the green-robed Xiao Hua. He hurriedly bowed and saluted. Disciple Wang Feng greets ancestral master. The green-robed Xiao Hua said with great magnanimity, this old man has brought you all to a space to gain experience. You can try to use the fireball technique. Yes, ancestral master. Wang Feng did not dare to be negligent. He rubbed his hands, but there was no movement between his hands. Wang Feng was stunned, and hurriedly released his divine sense. Then, his face was filled with understanding and surprise. He closed his eyes and thought for a moment, and then slowly rubbed his hands again. A fireball a few feet in size slowly appeared in his hands. The green-robed Xiao Hua asked, "How do you feel about the vital qi of heaven and earth here?" "Vital qi of heaven and earth?" Wang Feng smiled bitterly and said in a low voice, "Ancestral Master, our Shenhua continent does not have any vital qi of heaven and earth. The techniques disciple uses are all recorded in the sect's ancient records. Disciple has not used these techniques on Shenhua continent before, so disciple has no way to compare them." "En, release your nascent soul," the green-robed Xiao Hua said again, "release it slowly." "Yes, disciple understands." A trace of panic appeared in Wang Feng's eyes. He clearly understood the consequences of releasing his nascent soul in a place with vital qi of heaven and earth, but he did not dare to disobey the green-robed Xiao Hua's order. He raised his hand and a misty green light spurted out, and his nascent soul appeared on top of his head. Sure enough, when the nascent soul revealed its small hand, bubbles appeared on its small hand, and then the small hand began to collapse. Shua. Before Wang Feng could do anything, a huge force swept him away. His vision blurred, and he returned to the familiar fortune gate. And Jade Archive Xiao Hua was standing in front of him. Wang Feng could not tell who was Jade Archive Xiao Hua and who was the green-robed Xiao Hua. He hurriedly said respectfully, "Ancestral Master, disciple's nascent soul cannot appear in the world you found." "En, I understand." Jade Archive Xiao Hua nodded. "You can cultivate at ease." Then Jade Archive Xiao Hua asked the green-robed Xiao Hua to find a fention-severing disciple and avoid refinement disciple, but their nascent souls also did not dare to fly out. "It seems." Xiao Hua nodded slightly and said, "I'm afraid only body integration disciples can release their nascent souls." "En, it should be so." The green-robed Xiao Hua nodded. Body integration disciples merge their nascent souls with their physical bodies. As a spiritual body, the nascent soul also has the characteristics of the physical body, so it can use the physical body to adapt to different vital qi of heaven and earth. This is also the reason why our formless nascent souls can appear in the ruins. There are also I's 108th stage loose nascent souls. Xiao Hua added, "They have passed through the lightning tribulation and have already reached the spiritual body stage, so they don't need to be afraid of different vital qi of heaven and earth. Ask them to come out and take a look," the green-robed Xiao Hua said with a smile. "We can't just let I's disciples take risks, right?" Xiao Hua released 2 loose nascent souls, and as expected, they were not affected at all. "Fortune Gate's disciples have to come out." Finally, Xiao Hua said, "Even I's disciples have to come out, but their nascent souls are condensed from space's Shenhua continent, so tell them that no one can release their nascent souls. As long as their nascent souls are in their physical bodies, everything will be fine." "But," the green-robed Xiao Hua frowned, "even if we disciples come out and form an army of 100,000, who will be the commander?" "Naturally, it will be Xiao Sheng," the scholarly cultivator called when Chu shouted arrogantly in Xiao Hua's body. "Other than Xiao Sheng, who else has the ability to command an army?" "Che!" Xiao Hua sneered. "Listen to the name you gave yourself. Wen Chu, your grandmother. The Wen Chu star is a star revered by all scholarly cultivators, and you actually call yourself Wen Chu Puff." Following a soft sound, the scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua flew out from Xiao Hua's middle dantian, holding an illusory folding fan in his hand. He waved it lightly and said proudly, "What's Wen Chu?" Fellow immortal body called himself Namo Metria, Kid Mo Ling called himself Sure, and even that dry guy called himself Celestial. "You stay on the side," the green-robed Xiao Hua said with a smile. "You don't even have the perseverance to help I set up a fortune gate, and you still want to mobilize an army? Who said I don't have patience?" The scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua argued. At that time, didn't Xiao Sheng just obtain the true essence of scholarly cultivation? "I didn't have time to take care of your fortune gate." "Enough," Xiao Hua said with a smile. "You and I are not people who can command an army, and I can't be at ease leaving the lives of a group of disciples in your hands. The scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua didn't argue and asked curiously, "So, fellow immortal wants to personally go to the southwest border?" -13. Chapter 4094. You and I can't do it, but there are others. Xiao Hua smiled. Don't you and I have a ready-made candidate in our space? How could you forget? Oh, that's right. Scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua held his forehead and said, I forgot about him. Although his cultivation base is only at the level of a Confucian cultivator, he can only be my grand disciple, but his ability to command troops is something that I cannot compare with. He's the best candidate to be the commander. Yes, yes. Green-robed Xiao Hua also smiled. This matter can only be done by true monarch Qingyuan. However, fellow Daoist, if you let true monarch Qingyuan Sun Jian lead my Fortune Gate's 100,000 disciples, will you be at ease? Aren't you afraid that he will leak the secret to the immortal emperor? He is a loyal follower of the immortal palace's immortal emperor. He. Xiao Hua laughs like an old fox, not to mention that with this Xiao's current cultivation, I'm not afraid of any immortal emperor. Just based on this Xiao's control of an iron-blooded army, would the immortal palace dare to challenge this Xiao? True monarch Qingyuan is the immortal emperor's trusted aide. He will definitely tell the immortal emperor about what happened here, and he will also tell the immortal emperor about your strength. Scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua nodded. Of course, he will also judge the situation and give the immortal emperor a suggestion. I don't need to think too much about it. Previously, true monarch Qingyuan was ostracized in the immortal palace because his cultivation was insufficient. Although the immortal emperor stood his ground, once he made a mistake, it was inevitable that he would be punished. Xiao Hua continued, now, true monarch Qingyuan is already the sage of literature. In the future, true monarch Qingyuan will definitely be an important minister of the immortal palace. The immortal emperor can't disobey his words. Moreover, he has received I's teachings, and the entire immortal palace will benefit from it. It can be said that I am the master of all scholarly cultivators. Heaven, earth, ruler, teacher, and family are not nonsense. Deal. Scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua and green-robed Xiao Hua both nodded. Then, as fellow Daoist thinks, we will ask true monarch Qingyuan to lead our Fortune Gate's 100,000 troops. However, fellow Daoist still needs to keep some secret. Of course. Xiao Hua smiled. The 100,000 troops will be divided into several groups, and several fellow Daoists will supervise the troops. We also need to transform. Don't let that guy recognize us. Scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua suggested. Then, Xiao Hua discussed with a few Essence Soul avatars and pulled perfected Lord Qingyuan out of the space. The moment true Lord Qingyuan came out of the space, his eyes were filled with fear. After all, his experiences in the heavenly prison were truly frightening. However, seeing the clear sky and the mountain peaks and huge rocks, which were almost the same as in the space, immortal Qingyuan Sun Jian was overjoyed. However, looking at the smiling Xiao Hua, Sun Jian still bowed and saluted. Then, suppressing his ecstasy, he asked, Immortal Xiao, can we leave the heaven prison and return to the hidden immortal continent? Take a look. Xiao Hua raised his finger and pointed at the 3 suns in the sky. Ah! 3 suns? Sun Tian was dumbfounded. His eyes sparkled as he looked around and asked curiously, where is this? This is the ruins. Xiao Hua explains, we did escape from the heaven prison, but we didn't return to the hidden immortal continent. Instead, we accidentally landed here. However, don't worry. Since I have the ability to escape from the heavenly prison, I will definitely have the ability to bring you back to the hidden immortal continent. At this time, Sun Jian simply prostrated himself in admiration of Xiao Hua. What kind of place was the heavenly prison? No cultivator could escape from this place, but Xiao Hua was actually able to come out alive. Moreover, Xiao Hua's current cultivation was far beyond his imagination. Sun Jian respectfully says, yes, Immortal Xiao's methods, I know them very well. I called you out today because I have something to tell you. Xiao Hua opened his mouth and explained, If you and I want to leave the ruins, defeating the Devil Clan is the most important thing. Only when they retreat can the transmission channel open. Of course I can command the troops to fight the enemy, Sun Jian said carefully. However, you and I are outsiders. How can we command the cultivators of the ruins? Holding the commander's seal but not being able to control the hearts of the people is a military taboo. How can the cultivators of the ruins listen to our orders? Xiao Hua laughed. We naturally have our own disciples. Immortal Xiao's own disciples. Speaking of this, Sun Jian's face suddenly changed. He looked at Xiao Hua in disbelief. However, looking at Xiao Hua's indifference, he became somewhat pensive. Xiao Hua took out the Kunlun mirror, threw it in the air, and said with a smile, since the Kunlun immortal realm can accommodate immortal Qingyuan, then my disciple can also be placed inside. Alas, immortal Xiao still knows this secret in the end. Immortal Qingyuan Sun Jian looked at the Kunlun mirror that flickered with a mysterious brilliance under the sunlight and sighed slightly. Xiao Hua's heart moved. Thinking of what Sun Jian wanted to say in the heavenly prison, he rolled his eyes and said with a smile, in this world, there is no secret that can never be known by others. Since I got the Kunlun mirror, I naturally know the secret of the Kunlun mirror and the Kunlun immortal realm. From this point of view, the others. At this point, Xiao Hua's mind suddenly lit up, as if he had understood something. He forcefully suppressed the shock in his heart and probed, other treasures, such as the secret of the Penglai immortal realm, are naturally nothing. Actually, the immortal emperor also has his own difficulties. Sun Jian fell into Xiao Hua's trap. He did not hesitate and said, the immortal emperor wanted to search the entire hidden immortal continent, so he had to control the clear sky mirror. And the clear sky mirror, in essence, it is a Daoist heavenly spiritual treasure. Even though it has been reforged by my Confucian senior, without the constant nourishment of the Daoist heavenly spiritual qi, it cannot be fully utilized. As the leader of the Confucian cultivators, the immortal emperor was in charge of the immortal palace. Of course, he could not cultivate the Daoist techniques. Therefore, he had no choice but to take out the core of the clear sky mirror, which formed the Penglai immortal realm. He. Xiao Hua sneered, the immortal emperor has a good plan. Not only did he use the Penglai immortal realm to imprison my Daoist heavenly spiritual qi 5th grade and above cultivators, but he also used them to nourish the clear sky mirror. Then, he used the clear sky mirror to search the entire hidden immortal continent and capture my Daoist cultivators. Sun Jian was a little embarrassed, as if this was something he did. He smiled and said, this was not done by the current immortal emperor, it's the same for everyone. Xiao Hua replied indifferently. Actually, Sun Jian explained again, the immortal emperor kept the Daoist heavenly spiritual qi 5th grade and above cultivators captive for the clear sky mirror, but it also protected the Daoist heavenly spiritual qi so that they would not be killed by the Confucian noble families on the hidden immortal continent. Other than these two reasons, there is a third reason, right? Xiao Hua smiled and said, controlling the clear sky mirror means controlling the Penglai immortal realm. At the same time, he also controls all the Daoist heavenly spiritual qi 5th grade and above cultivators. If the immortal emperor is useful, he can also make these Daoist cultivators work for him to resist the Confucian noble families, right? Sun Jian's expression changed slightly. He shook his head and said, I don't know about this. Moreover, I ask that you keep this secret for the immortal emperor. Otherwise, the immortal palace will not be stable, and the Penglai immortal realm will not be peaceful. Why would I say anything more? Xiao Hua said bitterly, unless this Xiao kills you right now, you will definitely tell the immortal emperor about the Kunlun mirror. If this Xiao says it, the immortal emperor will probably tell the whole world about the Kunlun mirror. This Xiao won't have any peaceful days in the future. Moreover, in order to weaken the immortal emperor's power, those Confucian noble families might attack the Penglai immortal realm. Our Daoist cultivators will have a hard time surviving. Yes, it's good that you know. I will also keep this a secret. Sun Jian naturally knew that Xiao Hua would not kill him for no reason. He looked at Xiao Hua and nodded slightly. All right, Sun Jian. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and said, wait a moment. I will bring my Fortune Gate disciples out of the Kunlun immortal realm. Let's see how you plan to arrange the troops. If you have any orders, I will not dare to disobey. For his own safety, Sun Jian had to agree to Xiao Hua's arrangement. He replied without any hesitation. Xiao Hua looked up and flew to a plane. The Kunlun mirror in his hand trembled, and the green-robed Xiao Hua, Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua, and the others changed their appearances and flew out. They cupped their hands towards Xiao Hua and stood in the air without saying a word. As for Sun Jian, who was standing beside Xiao Hua, they did not even look at him. Sun Jian used the clear eye technique to check the cultivation of these clones. He could not help but suck in a few breaths of cold air. Not to mention the green-robed Xiao Hua, the soul cultivator Xiao Hua, and the dragon-veined Xiao Hua's cultivation. Even the Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua's cultivation was half a level higher than his. Although it seemed that their strength was only half a level higher, Sun Jian could clearly feel that the Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua's strength was not just half a level higher than his. Sun Jian's surprise did not stop there. Seeing thousands of nascent soul and spirit-severing disciples come out in a line and stand behind the green-robed Xiao Hua and the others, Sun Jian's eyeballs almost fell out. In the hidden immortal mainland's Daoist country, when did so many experts appear? He almost wanted to shake Xiao Hua's shoulder and ask, how did he teach these Fortune Gate disciples? However, thinking about the thousands of years he had spent in the Kunlun immortal domain, Sun Jian's heart calmed down slightly. After all, it was thousands of years. To have such great achievements was normal. However, when the 100,000 Fortune Gate disciples stood in the air, Sun Jian was completely dumbfounded. He did not even have the strength to be surprised and was too lazy to ask anything. He already understood that when Xiao Hua was surrounded by him at the Black Wind Ridge, he had already taken all the Black Wind Ridge disciples into the Kunlun mirror. And after the heavenly prison's strange fate, these disciples had also become rare Daoist experts on the hidden immortal mainland. However, Sun Jian still could not help but feel excited in his heart. 100,000 R. 100,000 R. The Fortune Gate's current strength is comparable to a 4th-grade family. No, it's more than enough to compare to a 3rd-grade family. If Xiao Hua returned to the hidden immortal mainland, wouldn't he become a grandmaster who can summon the wind and summon the rain? If he stomps his feet in the Black Wind Ridge, the entire hidden immortal mainland will tremble, right? -13. Chapter 4095. Sun Jian. Xiao Hua looked at Sun Jian's expression and pointed at him. These are my Fortune Gate's disciples. They are all under your command. You don't need to pay attention to those immortal friends. They are just a few supervisors. They won't interfere with your deployment. You can even give them orders when you need them to do something. Okay. Sun Jian took a deep breath and nodded. Dao Master Xiao's disciples have high cultivation, but they haven't been trained. They can't fight for now. This sun will first teach them the method of marching and setting up formations. This will take about 10 days. Okay. Xiao Hua nodded. I'll leave the military affairs to you. I still have a secret technique to comprehend. Just let me know when you're ready. Also, Sun Jian seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly asked, do you have flying boats and demonic beasts in your Kunlun immortal realm? Some formations need to rely on flying boats to form. Of course. Xiao Hua waved his hand and a huge lightning boat appeared in the air. Sun Jian's eyes flashed and he nodded. How do I control this flying boat? Just leave it to him. Xiao Hua pointed at the green-robed Xiao Hua and said, let him control the flying boat. Then I'll have to trouble immortal friend. Sun Jian looked at the green-robed Xiao Hua and smiled. How should I address immortal friend? I am lightning immortal. The green-robed Xiao Hua said in a dignified manner and flew onto the lightning boat. Damn it. A Dao Gate cultivator with at least an 8th-grade essence force is steering this sun's boat. Sun Jian thought. I'm afraid I won't encounter such a fortuitous encounter again in my life. Fortunately, Sun Jian didn't have time to ask for the names of Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua and bone-tempering Xiao Hua. Otherwise, He would have been scared stiff by the names of Wen Chu and Heavenly Man Sun Jian didn't mention the 100,000 Fortune Gate's elite disciples. Xiao Hua flew more than 10,000 li away. He released his divine sense and sat cross-legged on a mountain peak. Immediately, Xiao Hua closed his eyes and meditated for half a day. When the three suns slowly set down, his hands slowly formed a seal. This was the karma seal that Xiao Hua had comprehended in the space. However, just as Xiao Hua was forming hand seals, he stopped again. He pinched his chin and thought for a while, then he waved his hand and released his disciples, including the black bear, white lion, and golden eagle. Master! Everyone appeared in midair, not paying any attention to the situation around them. They all bowed respectfully. The black bear spirit and the other two demons were even more cautious. They stood behind the disciples and knelt down. Greetings, old master. Xiao Hua didn't say anything. Instead, he swept his gaze across the disciples one by one. The boy from before had already become a void refinement realm expert, and he was also a grandmaster who could establish a sect. Yuan Ya, Fu Jiwen, Wang Bianfei, and Wu Tian were still single for thousands of years. They spent all their time on cultivation. As for Chang Yuan and Yu Zhongquan, Liu Yi and Jiang Hong, they were different. Chang Yuan and Yu Zhongquan had gone through 3 lives of love and finally married in Xiao Hua's space. These thousands of years were enough for their descendants to form an aristocratic family. In Xiao Hua's Shenhua continent, the Yu family was also one of the 2 famous aristocratic families. As for the other aristocratic family, it was naturally the Liu family left behind by Liu Yi and Jiang Hong. Yu Zhongquan and Chang Yuan were an engaged couple. It was normal for them to love each other and marry each other. Liu Yi and Jiang Hong didn't have any official marriage. However, one was from the dragon race, and the other was a cultivator of the Dao sect. They didn't care about these formalities. Besides, with Fu Jiwen as an example, they didn't need to use any aphrodisiac pills. The man and the dragon had already dual cultivated long ago. However, it was also strange. After the dragon race mated with the dragon race, there were very few chances for the dragon race to reproduce. However, there were many descendants of the dragon race and the dragon race. In the same thousands of years, the Shenhua continent's Liu family was more than 3 times stronger than the Yu family. Moreover, the giant dragons that Xiao Hua killed in the stacked Jade Legacy realm were now very useful. They were taken by Liu Yi for his descendants. Even, Jiang Hong also begged the dragon vein Xiao Hua to open up a place like a big lake in the space, so that some descendants with purer dragon blood could cultivate inside. After looking at the disciples, Xiao Hua withdrew his gaze, raised his hand and said, "You all can get up." After speaking, he said solemnly to Yu Zhongquan and Chang Yuan, "Disciple, master was a little reckless. I didn't expect that there would be such a big tribulation. I actually left the hidden immortal continent for so long. I let you all experience the tribulation with master. You can't see your parents again in this life. If master had known this, I would have forcibly taken them into the Kunlun mirror like how I dealt with the Fu family and let your parents enjoy the happiness of family reunion. Hehe, master, you have already given us a lot. Only by raising children can we know the kindness of our parents. We are all old farts for thousands of years. Looking at our descendants, we also understand the painstaking efforts of our parents. Although we can't fulfill our filial duties in front of them, we can still help the Yu family grow in Shenhua continent. This is more important than anything else." Yu Zhongquan was no longer the hothead he had been in the past, and he answered in an organized manner. "That's good." Xiao Hua nodded, looked at Wang Bianfei, and said with a smile, "Fortunately, Master brought Bianfei's mother to the Kunlun immortal realm. Otherwise, Master would feel guilty for a lifetime." Wang Bianfei smiled slightly. "Master is too soft-hearted. Before Mother left, she said that meeting Master was the greatest opportunity in my life, and asked me to serve Master well no matter what. My parents also said the same." Fu Jiwen said, when they first came to the Kunlun immortal realm, they were still complaining. However, as time passed, they saw that disciples' cultivation was getting more and more profound, so they didn't say anything anymore. When Master gave them the rejuvenation pill and increased their lifespan by dozens of years, they admired Master even more. Forget it. Xiao Hua said with a smile, there is no perfect thing in the world. Master has already tried his best to help you. There is no need to mention these things again. Master, could it be that we have already returned to the hidden immortal continent? Liu Yi was the most alert. He looked around and asked Xiao Hua's words. Of course not. Xiao Hua shook his head and explained the same words again. When everyone heard this, their expressions changed and they also rubbed their palms. After all, they were all experts around the void refinement realm and had never fought with outsiders, so they were inevitably eager to give it a try. Wu Tian. Xiao Hua looked at Wu Tian and asked, what do you feel in your heart? Wu Tian's cultivation method had already deviated before he reached the gold core realm. After being corrected by Xiao Hua and cultivating in the space, although he had also stepped into the void refinement realm, he was still half a level lower than Liu Yi and the others. However, he knew that his aptitude was limited, and he had magical powers that others didn't know about, so he wasn't jealous. He just focused on comprehending the divination technique that Xiao Hua taught him. At this time, when he heard Xiao Hua's question, he hurriedly said respectfully, yes, Master knows. Disciple already had some feelings in the Kunlun immortal realm, but here, those feelings are all gone. If you want to know, you have to cast a spell. However, the palpitating feeling that Disciple had on the hidden immortal continent has long disappeared, and there is even a feeling of clarity. Good. Xiao Hua nodded and looked at the black bear and the other two demons. He asked, the three of you should also be training. Although the black bear, white lion, and golden eagle had obtained Xiao Hua's inheritance, after all, their bloodline was not pure, and their aptitude was limited. For thousands of years, they had only cultivated to the moon-picking realm. Of course, the star-picking realm was already inconceivable in their eyes. At this time, hearing Xiao Hua's words, the black bear smiled and said, Master, I don't want any training. I still want to guard the cave for you. Xiao Hua scolded, that's a matter for the future. When I return to the hidden immortal continent, I will definitely establish a sect. You will guard it for me. Hehe, that's good. The black bear replied with a smile, if Master is willing, then I will accompany Brother Liu and the others to train together. Go! Xiao Hua raised his hand and pointed at the place where Sun Jian was and said with a smile, the Fortune Gate's disciples in the Kunlun immortal realm are all there. You can go with them. Yes, I will go over now. The black bear spirit nodded hurriedly. Yu Zhongquan and Liu Yi looked at each other and said at the same time, Master, our two aristocratic families have many descendants with profound cultivation on the Shenhua continent. Instead of letting them fight among themselves in the Kunlun immortal realm, why don't we let them come here to train? Wherever there were humans, there would be internal strife. Shenhua continent was the same. Although Yu Zhongquan and Liu Yi were disciples of the same sect, they had many descendants. The two families were known as the two great families of the Shenhua continent, and they definitely had the heart to compete. Sometimes, the descendants of the dragon race were brainless. The two families did not have any major disputes, but there were constant small conflicts. Yu Zhongquan, Liu Yi, and even the green-robed Xiao Hua could not do anything. After all, they could not suppress them by force. Therefore, when the two of them heard that there was such a good opportunity, they naturally thought of the matter that gave them a headache. Hehe, that's true. Xiao Hua was naturally clear about the matters of the Shenhua continent. He nodded and said, you two discuss and see who should come out to train. The two of them discussed for a while and came up with a list of several thousand people. Xiao Hua looked at it and said with a smile, Granny, these descendants have gone through a bloody battle. If we let them go back to the burial immortal realm, I'm afraid that something big will happen. Hehe, no matter how big the matter is, it can't be compared to Master's matter. Liu Yi replied with a smile, this disciple is letting them out to train because of this. Xiao Hua shook the Kunlun mirror and released the several thousand people. Sure enough, each of these descendants had an imposing appearance and were dragons and phoenixes among men. The several thousand people stood in the air and were divided into two groups. They first kowtowed to Xiao Hua, then to the two families' ancestors. Xiao Hua laughed in his heart. The green-robed Xiao Hua was a godlike existence in the space. Even if the people of the Shenhua continent ignored their own parents, they would not dare to disrespect Xiao Hua. -13. Chapter 4096. This place is not the hidden immortal continent. As for where it is, you don't need to know. Xiao Hua said, you just need to remember that your nascent soul cannot be exposed in space. You can use all other divine abilities. Yes. Everyone bowed. Then, Liu Yi and Yu Zhongquan said a few more things to pay attention to, and all the disciples flew to Sun Jian's location. After everyone left, Xiao Hua finally calmed down and sat down. Xiao Hua's 10 fingers moved slightly, and after images flew out. Between the after images, the 10 fingers were so fast that their outlines couldn't be seen, as if they hadn't moved at all. However, between the after images, an obscure fluctuation gradually appeared. It either flew in all directions or fell into the void. Within the fluctuation, the world's origin qi produced by Xiao Hua condensed into tiny crystal threads. Xiao Hua's body began to give birth to a strange power. Within this power, the moaning of gods and ghosts could be heard. As the crystal threads flickered, the mysterious veil of an extremely strange kingdom was lifted. Under these strange phenomena, the space within 100 miles began to distort. A powerful force rushed into Xiao Hua's body in the opposite direction. Xiao Hua didn't need to use any other spells. After Phoenix body Xiao Hua left, his body condensed from the world's origin energy began to form hundreds of millions of vortexes. These vortexes swallowed strands of crystal threads, and after the powerful force entered his body, they crazily rushed in all directions. As a result, the fluctuation around Xiao Hua's body became more and more intense, causing everything in the surroundings to be affected. Even the 3 suns in the sky and setting in the west where the fluctuation was emitted were covered in layers of halos. The sun at the edge of the fluctuation was greatly stretched. The moon, which was opposite the sun, was now gradually emitting a bright brilliance. The moon, which was supposed to be bright at night, appeared a few hours earlier. In the sky, which was still bright, the stars had already poked their heads out. Along with the fluctuation, Xiao Hua's body gradually elongated, gradually thinned, and gradually became transparent. In the end, Xiao Hua himself almost turned into the fluctuation. However, just as Xiao Hua turned into the fluctuation, and the fluctuation was about to condense into the Karma hand, catcher, a thin layer of silver-white lightning appeared in the void. It fell on the surging fluctuation like a fountain. Wherever the lightning went, all the fluctuations were wiped out. Xiao Hua's body began to slowly reveal itself. Right behind the thunderbolt, in a dark place without any light, a mysterious figure suddenly appeared. The mysterious figure slightly moved while tens of thousands of strange mortal realms emerged from each line of the mysterious figure. The mysterious figure then said in an extremely deep voice, That interesting human. When did he arrive at the great desolate realm? His cultivation is so fast. Oh, no, it doesn't seem to be the real realm, but a speck of dust of the realm. Perhaps this extremely lucky human had accidentally wandered into that place. However, since he's already here, there's no need to go back. Every syllable of the shadow produced a string of lotuses in the darkness. These lotuses seemed to be the Buddhist lotuses of the Buddhist sect. However, if one looked carefully, there was a huge difference between them and the Buddhist lotuses. This was because the edges of these lotuses were condensed with a pitch-black color, and the core of the lotuses was a sinister monstrous demon head. At the place where the voice fell, the shadow disappeared. There were no fluctuations, no sound of wind, and no changes in light and shadow. Xiao Hua's body appeared, and his eyes were filled with a silver-white color. When the flame flickered in the silver-white color, the silver-white color slowly retreated. The flame turned into a meteor and fell into his eyes. Only then did Xiao Hua's clear black and white eyes give birth to a trace of regret. Damn it! Xiao Hua couldn't help but secretly curse. Isn't this karma method too abnormal? This Xiao's current strength is comparable to a 9th grade essence power, but I'm still unable to activate it. It seems that if I want to complete this karma method, I'm afraid I'll have to ascend before I can do it. However, with my current cultivation, even though I can't activate the complete karma method, I can still see the faint outline of the karma method. This trip to the southwest border is a must. Moreover, this Xiao will definitely encounter some danger, and the result of this danger is a daunting experience without any mishap. Xiao Hua calmed down after obtaining the result. He withdrew his karma method, and in a flicker, his figure appeared beside Sun Jian. At this time, within several hundred li to Sun Jian's left, 100,000 Fortune Gate disciples were arranged in different battle formations. They were dressed in blue and yellow robes, and were divided into two armies facing each other. Their magic treasures were flying in the air, and their magic power crisscrossed in the air. The atmosphere was gloomy and orderly, and it was 100 times stronger than before. Seeing Xiao Hua coming over, Sun Jian's cold face did not show any reaction. Instead, he raised his hand and waved it. An azure flag that shone like water floated in the air, and the blue army opposite Xiao Hua suddenly split into two groups, attacking the center of the enemy's formation. The yellow army that was attacked was obviously caught off guard, and they panicked in an instant. A flaw appeared in their strict battle formation, and in the next moment, an even stronger team flew out from the blue army. They descended from the sky and attacked the yellow army. Then, the blue army changed their battle formation again, and the yellow army was divided into several hundred smaller teams. Stop! Sun Wu waved his hand, causing the azure flag to disappear. Stop! He said. Following Sun Jian's order, the yellow army and the red army retreated at lightning speed, and they split into two orderly formations in the air. This is war. Sun Jian flew into the air and said indifferently, "There's no need to spend too much magic power, and there's no need to use high-grade magic treasures. As long as the soldiers work together, encircle and break the enemy's formation. In war, an individual's strength is negligible, unless your cultivation is comparable to Daoist Master Xiao's. Otherwise, don't have any thoughts of being independent, because not only will you take your own life, but you will also take the lives of your comrade. We are far away in the ruins fighting the devil race. Since we were young, it's because we want to return to the hidden immortal continent. It's to train us so that we can have the qualifications to be proud of the hidden immortal continent. In the big picture, it's for our sect, for the reputation of the Fortune Gate, and for the reputation of the hidden immortal continent. We must not retreat in front of the devil race, and we must not let the ruins cultivators look down on our hidden immortal continent. Yes. The Fortune Gate's disciples raised their right fists and punched their left chests as they responded loudly. An iron-blooded aura that ordinary cultivators could not reach gradually emerged and rushed into the sky. Good. Xiao Hua had naturally seen the aura of the Sun Temple's immortal soldiers and immortal generals. At this time, although the disciples could not compare to those immortal soldiers and immortal generals, Xiao Hua could not help but admire Sun Wu for achieving such results in a short period of time. Sun Jian flew in front of Xiao Hua and said, "Master Xiao, this General Sun Jian has received Master Xiao's order to lead the army. Because the time is short, this is all I can do. Master Xiao, please instruct me." Xiao Hua nodded slightly and raised his hand to take out a weapon and handed it to Sun Jian. "General Sun, you have helped my Fortune Gate to train the disciples, and this Xiao thanks you for your hard work. This is a weapon forged by my Fortune Gate's blacksmiths. This Xiao represents my Fortune Gate to give it to the general. I hope that the general can use this 3-point double-edged blade to kill the devil race in the ruins and wipe out the ghosts of the hidden immortal continent." Sun Jian had not seen his 3-point double-edged blade since he was thrown into the heavenly prison. He had already forgotten whether it was sent flying by Sun Hao on the Black Ruins Mountain or lost in the heavenly prison. Now that he saw a familiar weapon, his heart warmed slightly. He knew that Xiao Hua had the heart to keep his weapon in the Kunlun immortal realm. But when he received the 3-point double-edged blade and poured his true qi into it, the blade emitted a buzzing sound. Sun Jian's face was filled with shock. He looked at the weapon in his hand in disbelief and whispered, This is this Sun's weapon?" Xiao Hua smiled and said, "This is naturally General Sun's weapon. However, After being forged by my Fortune Gates blacksmiths, this Xiao can tell the general that this weapon's advancement in the future is comparable to the Son of Heaven's sword. Xiao Hua's words were not exaggerated at all. When he separated the yin and yang space, there were many magic treasures inside. When the green-robed Xiao Hua refined the 3-point double-edged blade, he had integrated the core of one of the magic treasures. This 3-point double-edged blade would definitely become a natural treasure in the future. Of course, it would be comparable to the Son of Heaven's sword. Although Sun Jian did not know that his 3-point double-edged blade had such good fortune, when he held the weapon in his hand, that weapon was like a living thing, unusually intimate with him. How could he not know that Xiao Hua's words were true? Thank you, Master Xiao. Sun Jian put away the weapon. After Xiao Hua explained the refinement method to Sun Jian through voice transmission, his gaze swept over the Fortune Gates disciples. A moment later, he said, "Today, all of you have fallen into a dangerous situation. What you will face is a choice of life and death. This is not a childhood game, nor is it a spar between fellow disciples, nor is it a battle between aristocratic families. This is a life and death battle. Only by going through this test of blood and fire will you be qualified to be my Fortune Gates disciples. Disciples, go fight. Display your talents to your heart's content. Only by killing as many devils as possible will you have a chance to live." "Yes." The group of disciples replied in an imposing manner. "Master Xiao." Just as Xiao Hua was about to wave his hand to give the order, Sun Jian hurriedly stopped him and said in a low voice, "You are not a general now, it's not appropriate for you to give orders." "Hey, this old man knows." Xiao Hua laughed embarrassedly. "I'll let you give the orders. There's one more thing." Sun Jian looked at the distant lightning ship and asked, "Do you have any more of these lightning ships?" This general wants to divide the 100,000 soldiers into 2 groups so that they can compete and supervise each other. Xiao Hua looked at Sun Jian and then at the distant green-robed Xiao Hua, who was not standing on the lightning ship, and nodded. This old man naturally has more of these lightning ships, but, oh, this old man understand. -13. Chapter 4097. While speaking, Xiao Hua waved his hand. Another huge thunderbolt landed side by side in the sky. Sun Jian smiled. He pointed at one of the thunderbolts and said, "Demon Slayer army, this thunderbolt will be the boat for your army of 50,000. Everyone, get back to your positions." "Yes." Following Sun Jian's command, 100 or so disciples from the Blue Army flew out and landed on the thunder ship. A moment later, the thunder ship began to rumble. Then, the disciples split into different formations and landed on different parts of the thunder ship. "Demon-slaying army, get back to your positions." Sun Jian gave another order. Disciples of the yellow demon-slaying army drove the thunderboats as well. Some disciples were on guard around the thunderboats. More disciples were scattered around the thunderboats. "Fellow immortals, please." Only the green-robed Xiao Hua, Xiao Hua's doppelganger, Liu Yi, and other disciples were left in midair. Following Sun Jian's command, they also flew to different thunderboats. Obviously, Sun Jian had already assigned them. Sun Wu looked at Xiao Hua and revealed a trace of a smile. "Daoist Master Xiao, which army did you choose?" "Don't be hasty." Xiao Hua seemed to have thought of something. He clapped his hands and took out a jade eye ring from his chest. He handed it to Sun Jian and said, "These are some offensive and defensive formations that I have comprehended. They should be effective in military formations. You can take a look." "Okay." Sun Jian took the jade eye ring and put it away with a smile. It seemed that he didn't trust Xiao Hua's formations. Xiao Hua didn't say much. He smiled and said, "I choose the demon-slaying army." After saying that, his figure flashed and landed on the thunder ship. Sun Jian landed on the other thunderboat with the 3-point, double-edged sword in his hand. He shouted, "Let's go." Boom! The 2 thunderboats roared at the same time. The distance between them was pulled apart and they flew to the southwest. With Sun Jian's command and the 100,000 soldiers showing him the direction, Xiao Hua was completely relieved. He just sat on the thunderboat and released his spirit. It covered an area of tens of thousands of miles and collected all the wandering souls in the space. Previously, when Xiao Hua was at the Xiaoyu continent, he sowed the seeds along the way. Now, in the ruins, he harvested the souls along the way. The two armies did different things, but the mercy of the two armies was the same. Sowing seeds was for survival, and searching for wandering souls was also for survival. Even if Xiao Hua's selfishness was for the sake of his own space, in essence, he had indeed saved countless lives. More than a day later, Xiao Hua suddenly opened his eyes, glanced at the beautiful scenery of the lake, and said a few words via voice transmission. He looked at the beautiful scenery of the lake and the beautiful scenery of the lake. After a while, a smile appeared on Xiao Hua's face. He closed his eyes again and continued to comprehend the time fluctuation that he had experienced in the heavenly prison. Faint thunderbolts flashed around the two thunderboats. In the time it took to smoke half a cigarette, they had already crossed a large lake. When they reached the second large lake, woo-woo, a chilly wind blew, and the lake below the thunderboats suddenly shattered, turning into thousands of fragments that flew into the air. The fragments streaked across the sky, and blood seeped out from the edges of the fragments. Looking at the location of the large lake again, it had become a huge depression. In this depression, dense demon energy began to spread rapidly in all directions. Before the blood-colored fragments could reach the thunderboats, the demon energy had already covered an area of nearly 1,000 miles. What was special was that this area seemed to have been prepared for an ambush. Every time the demon energy passed by, a fist-sized demon energy would rush out from under the ground, the lake, and the forest. Naturally, there were disciples on the thunderboats who were on guard. Seeing this, how could they not know that they had fallen into the demon's ambush? Not good. The disciples' faces were filled with nervousness and excitement. They hurriedly sent a message to the rear according to their previous training. Moreover, they were somewhat flustered as they set up a defense. Sun Jian stood on the other thunderboat with a steely expression as he watched silently. Xiao Hua had already sent a message to him, and he knew that there was a demon's ambush. However, in order to train the Fortune Gate's disciples, he did not warn them in advance. Instead, he let the thunderboats take the initiative to enter the ambush and observe the disciples' reactions. As expected, although the two armies had rehearsed the battle several times, it was inevitable that these disciples would make mistakes in a real battle. Xiao Hua naturally could not see these mistakes, but they were so obvious in Sun Jian's eyes. Calm down. Sun Jian could not help but scold, set up a formation according to this general's instructions. Don't panic. Xiao Hua stood up and said indifferently, don't panic. Although the enemy is close, your heart must be calm. Everything must be in order. These two sentences seemed very ordinary, but they were like a calming stone. All the disciples paused for a moment, then began to set up a formation according to their memories and training. Under the control of the disciples, the two lightning boats were also hovering in mid-air in a parallel manner. At this moment, the demonic aura billowed. Not only did it continue to spread in all directions, but it also swept the two thunderboats from bottom to top. Those flying fragments with blood-colored edges were now engulfed by the hurricane, shrouding nearly 1,000 miles of space. The fragments flipped rapidly in the air. Regardless of whether it was the color of blood or the rays of light that shot out, they all presented a strange color. Of course, the Fortune Gate's disciples on the two thunderboats were not idle. The 100,000 disciples did not fly out from the thunderboats. Instead, they stood in formation on the thunderboats. The lightning on the thunderboats flickered slightly, and it was obvious that they were ready to attack. The 1,000 li of space suddenly became silent, and even the wind froze. This silence only lasted for a few breaths. Gaga! A soul-shaking sound emerged from these fragments at the same time. Then, like a fountain, blood spurted out from every fragment. The blood instantly filled the entire space, and from the blood, shadows of the devil race rushed out. Roar roar! At the same time, there were shadows of the devil race in the hurricane of devil chi. Each of them was clad in pitch-black armor and held a devil artifact in their hands. They flapped their wings and pounced with bared fangs and brandished claws. Something is strange. Xiao Hua sensed the faint teleportation fluctuations in the air. He also released his divine sense to observe the appearance of the devil race. Even so, Xiao Hua couldn't see how these devil race arrived here through the void. However, after the devil race appeared, the fragments did not disappear. Instead, they continued to emit blood-red light. The blood-red light crisscrossed and formed a strange devil formation. Moreover, there were faint fluctuations in the devil formation that made people feel dizzy. All teams, pay attention. Sun Jian's voice sounded. Attack, rumble. Following Sun Jian's order, all kinds of magic treasures rushed out, diluting the blood-red light emitted by the fragments. In an instant, those strange fluctuations were wiped out. Moreover, after the magic treasures flew out, the two thunderbolts shot out lightning bolts, extinguishing the blood-red light several li away from the thunderbolts. Even the magic treasures had no chance against the fragments, and many of them were destroyed by the lightning bolts. Woo! After the lightning bolts disappeared, a strange bugle call sounded from the devil chi. The devil race that was dancing in the blood-red light and devil chi began to reveal themselves. They formed a formation and pounced towards the thunderbolts. Kill! Sun Jian calmly ordered. Magic treasures flew out like rainbows, and lightning bolts fell like rain. The Fortune Gate's disciples' magic treasures were not something the ruins cultivators' magic treasures could compare to. Which one of them wasn't powerful? Some of the Fortune Gate's disciples were even holding spirit artifact. When these magic treasures landed on the devil race's body, they would be severely injured at best, and in the worst case, their bodies would be pulverized. However, although the Fortune Gate's disciples were powerful, the devil race seemed to have no end. In less than half a cup of tea's time, the devil race had already broken through the Thunderbolt's defenses and arrived in front of the Fortune Gate's disciples. Disciples, form a formation, attack. Sun Jian coldly watched, and when the devil race got closer, he waved his hand and shouted, "Kill!" After receiving the military order, other than the disciples guarding the thunderbolts, the rest of the disciples on the two thunderbolts flew out to meet the devil race's enemies. Liu Yi, Jiang Hong, Yu Zhongquan, and the others also led some disciples out. In just a few breaths' time, the area within 1,000 li was filled with battle cries, and blood-red light gradually splashed. Whether it was the devil race's black chi or the devil race's radiance, they were all entangled together. Xiao Hua frowned slightly. He released his divine sense and covered the surrounding space. Since this was a battlefield, the Fortune Gate's disciples would inevitably suffer casualties. Xiao Hua would not let these disciples become wandering souls. He had to keep them in the dark side of the space. Sure enough, in less than half a cup of tea's time, the Fortune Gate's disciples began to fall one after another like falling gourds. Xiao Hua collected the souls of these dead disciples, and similarly, he also collected their corpses and other belongings on the thunderbolts. However, as more and more disciples fell, Xiao Hua seemed to be unable to cope. Right at this moment, Xiao Hua suddenly froze. He discovered something strange. Just a moment ago, a disciple had fallen, and Xiao Hua was only focused on collecting the corpses on the side. He wanted to turn around and collect the rest later, but in the blink of an eye, that disciple's soul actually disappeared, leaving behind only the corpse falling down. Strange. Xiao Hua's divine sense probed again, but he did not discover anything, so he continued to collect other souls. But after a while, Xiao Hua discovered that more and more souls were disappearing. He had no choice but to stop. He narrowed his eyes and looked around the battlefield. Then, with a flip of his hand, the delusion breaker law eye opened between his brows. Sure enough, there were some faint green human figures and black devil figures on the battlefield. These figures were like flowing water, flowing to 8 different locations around the battlefield. And at those 8 locations, there were clusters of dense black light flashing with a strange aura. Oh, so there are devil race collecting wandering souls nearby to refine devil artifact. Xiao Hua understood and thought inwardly, the devil race in the ruins seems to be different from the devil race in the Dawn Rain mainland. The devil race's devil artifacts are heavy, and devil banners and other kinds of devil artifacts are rare. But here, devil banners are more common than heavy devil artifact. Especially when the devil race besieged the ruins, not only did they seal the transmission array, but they also sealed the passage for wandering souls to enter the netherworld. There must be some unknown secret here. -13. Chapter 4098. While Xiao Hua was pondering, he naturally passed the information he had obtained to his several incarnations. The incarnations nodded their heads slightly and waited for Xiao Hua's orders. At this time, the Fortune Gate's disciples had experienced a relatively dense wave of deaths, and the situation gradually stabilized. The number of devil cultivators attacking the Fortune Gate increased, and the number of Fortune Gate's disciples decreased. Roar, roar! Angry roars came from all around the battlefield. The 8 devil chi spots suddenly spun violently, and 8,000 jong tall devil cultivators appeared. They were merely devil monarchs, and each of them held a devil flag in their hands. The devil flags were about 100 jong wide, and they were covered in strange patterns. Each pattern emitted a bloody shadow and a strong resentment aura. This. Xiao Hua looked at the devil flags and was stunned. Isn't this devil flag similar to the banner of Kaiyu wrapped around the stone statue in the dark side of this Xiao space? Could it be that the devil race attacked the fallen ruins to refine the banner of Kaiyu? However, this was not the time for Xiao Hua to think too much. After the 8 devil monarchs appeared, they each waved their devil flags. 8 faint dragon-shaped devil chi rushed out from the devil flags and madly pounced on the 2 lightning boats and the 100,000 Fortune Gate's disciples. Daoist Xiao, fellow immortals, it's time for us to make a move. Although Sun Jian did not know as much as Xiao Hua, he was not flustered. When he saw the devil monarchs appear, he shouted loudly and waved the 3-pointed double-edged sabers on his face, pouncing on the devil monarch closest to him. Lightning surged around Xiao Hua's body, and in a flicker, he appeared in front of a devil monarch. With a shake of his hand, the Kunlun mirror appeared in his hand, and a tricolored light beam pounced on the devil chi with a loud rumble. Boom! The tricolored light beam struck the devil flag, and instantly destroyed the devil chi. Moreover, the tricolored light beam did not stop, and continued to pounce on the devil flag. Seeing Xiao Hua's aggressive momentum, the devil monarch hurriedly rolled up the devil flag and dodged to the side. Then, he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of bloodlight that turned into a ball in front of him, preparing to block the Kunlun mirror's light beam. However, at that moment, something strange happened. The Kunlun mirror's beam of light did not chase after the demonic flag. Instead, it stopped in midair and slowly dissipated. While the demon monarch was surprised, he raised his eyes to look at Xiao Hua. At this time, Xiao Hua was standing in the air in a daze, staring at the bloody light that had just spurted out from the fragment. Within the bloody light, several hundred demons with the strength of demon generals flapped their wings and flew out. Xiao Hua's gaze fell on one of the extremely ordinary-looking devil generals. This demon general had a pair of wings on his back, and his pitch-black body was covered with a layer of scales that were engraved with indescribable demonic runes. On top of his head, there was a pair of pitch-black horns that did not seem very powerful. The demon general also seemed to feel Xiao Hua's gaze and turned his head. When he saw Xiao Hua's face and the Kunlun mirror in Xiao Hua's hand, shock appeared in his eyes. Woo! Seeing an opportunity, the demon monarch rolled his demonic flag and several streams of demonic chi pierced through the air like flying swords, piercing towards Xiao Hua. Chimpage. Xiao Hua really did not understand why he had such a strange feeling towards this ordinary-looking devil general. Seeing the demonic flag attacking, he retracted his attention from the devil general and urged his true essence to land on the Kunlun mirror. Woo woo! The Kunlun mirror shone brightly, and several beams of light flew out to attack those streams of demonic chi. With a rumbling sound, those streams of demonic chi were all annihilated. What a good Kunlun mirror! That demon monarch was a demon who knew his stuff. He praised and shouted, "Which sect's disciple are you from? This demon monarch seems to have never heard of the Kunlun mirror in the ruins. Demon brat, you're good." Xiao Hua laughed loudly. This old man is Xiao Hua, Daoist Xiao. As for where this Xiao came from, you don't need to know. You only need to know that this Xiao is a human. Since the demon race wants to sacrifice my soul to the flag, then don't blame this Xiao for being ruthless. Ha ha ha. There are still people who claim to be ruthless in front of this demon monarch. What a joke. While the demon monarch was laughing, he waved the demonic flag again, and it actually turned into a dark cloud of several miles in size and covered Xiao Hua. This is too funny. Xiao Hua smiled faintly. As he spoke, he formed an incantation gesture and hit the Kunlun mirror. Buzz buzz. Another loud rumbling sound rang out. A 5-colored beam of light that was several times bigger than the previous one rushed out of the Kunlun mirror and landed directly on the banner of Kaiyu. With a sizzling sound, the demonic flag's black gas was destroyed by the beam of light. Then, the beam of light landed on the demonic flag and pierced through it. Hiss. Not only was the demon monarch shocked, even the devil generals who had just flown out were scared stiff by Xiao Hua's Kunlun mirror. Ha ha ha. Similarly, as the demonic chi was pierced through, the souls imprisoned in the demonic flag flew out. Some of the stronger souls had just flown out of the demonic flag when they immediately let out wild laughter as if they were relieved of a heavy burden. Damn it! When the demon monarch saw that the demonic flag was damaged, his face changed rapidly. He cursed and opened his mouth, wanting to swallow the demonic flag and the souls into his mouth. Xiao Hua smiled coldly and waved his hand again. Swoosh. A strong golden light blinded the eyes of all the demons present. Half of the soaring dragon scissors turned into a flood dragon and pounced towards the demon monarch. In the blink of an eye, it landed on top of the demon monarch's head. The demon monarch hurriedly waved the demonic flag in front of his head. Similarly, he waved his hand and took out a huge bronze demonic shield. Crack crack. Very easily, a golden light flashed. The soaring dragon scissors retracted its dragon tail and flew back proudly. Looking at the demon monarch again, apart from the demonic horn on his head that was split into 2 halves, the black gas and the demonic shield were also split into 2. Countless demonic chi gushed out from the demon monarch's body, and there was also a large amount of blood aura mixed with devils rushing out. As soon as these devils flew out, they immediately roared and tried to escape. However, the demon monarch's body emitted a strange fluctuation. Not only did it cover these devils and the blood aura, it also attracted the demonic chi within several li of the surroundings to rush into his body. His demonic body was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Humph! Xiao Hua snorted coldly again. This snort was like a thunderclap. Then, under everyone's gaze, the Kunlun mirror once again flashed a beam of light. It passed through the void and instantly hit the demon monarch's heart. Boom! A loud sound rang out. It was as if a mountain had collapsed and a mountain flood had burst out. At the same time, the demonic body fell to the ground with a loud bang. Fast, it's really too fast. Including the demon general that Xiao Hua paid attention to, the other demon generals that had just rushed out were also dumbfounded. This was the demon monarch that they couldn't even look up to, was killed by Xiao Hua in such a short time. The eyes of all the demon generals were filled with fear. Daoist Master Xiao's name and the might of the Kunlun mirror had already been deeply engraved in their hearts. They were afraid that they wouldn't be able to erase it no matter what. Swish. Just when the demon generals were at a loss of what to do, the huge whirlwind rose up again. A powerful suction force appeared out of thin air. The roaring devils, the disorderly demonic chi, and the refined demonic flag suddenly fell into the suction force and disappeared without a trace. The demon generals turned pale with fright. They didn't understand how the demon monarch's corpse disappeared. However, they still looked at Xiao Hua with lingering fear. Following the activation of the demonic formation, their figures fell to various places one after another. Xiao Hua kept the demonic flag and the demonic body. His eyes slightly narrowed as he looked to his left. The demon general that gave him a familiar feeling earlier had already disappeared. At this moment, although the demonic formation had already covered the sky, in Xiao Hua's eyes, it was still somewhat weak. He turned his head to look at the location of the other 7 demon monarchs. His doppelganger had already easily killed the demon monarchs. The demonic flag that was exactly the same as the one he kept in his space had also fallen into his doppelganger's hands. As for his disciples, they were still bitterly fighting with the demon monarchs. However, it seemed that they had already gained the upper hand. Sun Jian was a Confucian warrior. He was the nemesis of the demon monarchs. That 3-point, double-edged blade was also refined by a spiritual treasure. When Xiao Hua's gaze fell on it, the 3-point, double-edged blade had already pierced through the void. It was precisely the demon monarch that was preparing to escape. Hehe, General Sun is indeed mighty. Xiao Hua laughed loudly. His figure swayed. His mind had already collected the demon monarch's body. The demonic flag was also in his hand. Although Sun Jian didn't know why Xiao Hua wanted to take the demonic flag, he didn't care. He nodded towards Xiao Hua and flew back to the thunderboat. His eyes flashed with a clear light as he carefully observed the battle situation around him. Within the demonic formation, Xiao Hua didn't have any restrictions. After teleporting a few times and collecting the few demon monarchs' bodies and demonic flags, he also returned to the thunderboat. Sitting down cross-legged, Xiao Hua's mind entered the dimension. In the yin side of the dimension, the banner of Kaiyu was emitting a dim halo, sucking in the demonic bodies, devil energy, devil flame, and many other things that Xiao Hua had collected into the dimension with his nether origin energy. Whenever there was a surge of devil energy, the halo of the banner of Kaiyu would flicker, as if it was very happy. A few other demonic flags that looked similar to the banner of Kaiyu were also revealed in midair. Under the demonic flags, in the blood ocean, there were many helplessly crying out helplessly. They were the souls and fiends of the demon clan that Xiao Hua had collected into the yin side of the dimension. The more fiends there were, the redder the blood ocean became, and the purer the bloodlight that was transmitted into the nether lotus and nether bamboo from the blood ocean. Xiao Hua looked at the few demonic flags, then raised his hand and pointed at them. Rip! The demonic flags were torn into two halves, and millions of souls rushed out from them. There were men and women, young and old, and there were even many things that didn't have the shape of a human. All of these souls had a dull expression, and they looked extremely pitiful. Xiao Hua sighed. He knew that most of these souls were collected by the demon monarchs from the ruins, or from other realms. Their purpose was to refine a demonic item similar to the banner of Kaiyu. He raised his hand and waved it, and the millions of souls rushed into the tree of nether fruit. Buzz! The tree of nether fruit also produced a rumbling noise in the blood ocean, and the entire yin side of the dimension was slightly trembling. As the number of souls Xiao Hua collected into the yin side of the dimension increased, the tree of nether fruit had expanded by more than 20 times. It no longer looked like a tree, but gradually, it looked like a continent, covering the blood ocean beneath it. Good. Xiao Hua beamed with joy. He already understood that the reason the demon clan besieged the ruins was to kill the cultivators in the ruins, and use the souls of these cultivators to refine their demonic flags. After he killed the demon monarchs, took the demonic flags, and even collected the souls in the demonic flags into the yin side of the dimension. Not only did he destroy the demon clan's plan, he also added more people to his dimension. These souls were comparable to the souls of the cultivators in the higher realms of the hidden immortal continent. If they were reincarnated as humans, wouldn't their potential be comparable to ordinary humans? Wouldn't it be easier for them to cultivate? Wouldn't it be easier for them to ascend and become an immortal? 13. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.